your stuff? Got your Altoids? I might reach over for one of those if I'm feeling. Give me a sign and I'll be like,
Good evening. Welcome to the RSU 5 Board of Directors meeting. It is Wednesday, January 23rd, 2019. We're in the Freeport High School Library. We have a full contingent of the board and actually both of our student reps here tonight, so full house, which is great. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I would accept a motion for consideration and approval for the minutes from the December 12th, 2018 meeting as presented, barring any errors or omissions. Maddie, second from Lindsay. All those in favor? None opposed? Adjustments to the agenda? None? All right, so we'll move right on to good news and recognition. So report from the student rep.
All right, so as usual, a lot of great things are happening here at Freeport High School.
It's midterm week, so that's fun.
She says sarcastic.
Yes, no, definitely.
And congratulations to all the seniors for their college acceptances.
Results for the Maine Scholastics Art Award competition are in. We're happy to say that 21 students, that's painful.
It's just your two.
Okay. My two, like, oh, okay. Well, okay. Anyway, so 21 students were recognized this year. So the pieces that received a gold or silver key award in Portland will be exhibited at the Maine College of Art in Portland. And we'll move on to the National Scholastics competition. So congratulations to everyone, because that's a really big deal.
We've got some exciting basketball games coming up. Boys varsity basketball are facing Freiburg this Friday, and that's on the 25th. And then the girls face Lake Region on the 31st. And then later on, boys will face Wells on February 2nd. Good luck to those teams.
Freeport Middle School's production of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz is on Friday, February 1st at 7 and Saturday, February 2nd at 2. Tickets are $5. It's going to be a great show.
So Freeport High School is looking for a few students who would like to be a part of the high school's team for Odyssey of the Mind. And those students, if anyone knows anyone who's interested, would please meet in room 103 this Friday from 3 to 4 for more information.
Tuesday, February 12th at 6 p.m. in the FHS library, which is here. The guidance department is hosting an informational evening about the college admission process.
So Wednesday, February 6th, our principal, Ms. Jen Golko, will be hosting a coffee meeting for the parents of Freeport High School and the guardians on high school programs that are available, and snacks will be provided.
That's how you get it.
And if anyone's interested in being a mentor to a high school student, we're looking for adult mentors who can mentor a student once a week. For more information, you can contact Dee Dee Benell. And that's all we have for this week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. I was wondering who's going to do the report. That was very good tag teaming. Okay, so next on our agenda is the first of two public comments on our agenda for this evening. So if anyone in the crowd would like to speak, we just ask that you come up to the microphone and identify yourself. Okay. Report from the superintendent.
Thank you. The board has been having a lot of learning opportunities this year, and your next opportunity for a learning walkthrough will be at Durham Community School on February 12th. Please contact Will Pidden if you're planning on attending. This visit will focus on our STEM instruction. Last night at Brunswick, Michelle, Mara, Maddie, Candy, and I met with area board members and superintendents to share ideas and learn about effective boardsmanship. The evening went very well, and we've already scheduled another meeting for March 26th. So if you were not able to attend last night, or if you would like to continue learning, please put that on your calendar. And I am excited to report that Peter Wagner and Dee Dee Bennell are partnering with our community members, including Willow Wright, to provide mentors to some of our students. And so this idea kind of emerged from our Dropout Prevention Committee group, and we're really excited to get that up and running. And I'm also happy to report that I just signed for the final payment to RAD. So I think we have now completed that project, and we're focusing on getting the approval for a PA system, and we're hoping to get that done before spring sports begins. By our next meeting, I will have the charge for the Sustainability Committee that you requested that you'd like to get up and running. Our new strategic plan is progressing well, and tonight we will be discussing or showing you our new mission and vision statement that we would like to get adopted. Winter sports are going very well. Our boys basketball team is in 6th place currently. Our girls is currently, they're in 3rd place. They're doing super well. Indoor track has participated in 3 meets so far, and several athletes have already qualified for the state championship meet. Alpine skiing, we've had 3 meets with several top 10 finishes. Nordic skiing, we've had 4 meets with several top 10. Girls ice hockey is currently in 4th place. Boys ice hockey is currently in 5th. And our cheerleaders hosted the WMC Cheering Championship and came in 4th, and so they'll be eligible to compete in the MPA Regional Championships that will be at the Augusta Civic Center this Saturday, January 26th. And then we have 3 staff members that will be retiring at the end of this year. Linda Woodard, 3rd grade teacher at PES. Joe Cormier, Freeport Middle School Health PE teacher. And Beth Marklon, 1st grade teacher at Moore Street. I also have 1 resignation to report. Chanel Cavanaugh is an ed tech at Moore Street School. And that concludes my report for tonight. You'll be hearing more from me a lot tonight, but between the board goal update and presenting the FY20 budget.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to item 9 on the agenda, which is administrative reports. We're going to start with finance. Michelle.
Oh, it's right up at the right level for me. It's unusual. Hello, everybody. So your purple sheet is the finance. And when you look at that and compare it to this time last year, we're within a 1% of where we were last year. So we're still right on track on what we've been doing for the prior year. So I have not had a chance to do any projections at this moment in time because I have been concentrating on the budget that you're going to be presented with tonight. So I'm hoping to come with you next month with the projections of where we're going to land. But at this point, I don't predict anything different than where we landed in the past year. And the good news is Munis will be starting their first meeting this coming Friday for us to switch over to the new financial system. So the process begins.
Very exciting.
Any questions?
Okay, thank you. Okay, so update on the 2018-2019 district goals. You got about a 2-minute break.
I
Hopefully
did.
you're ready.
Yeah. Enough to have some water. So in your board packet, I provided you with a pretty detailed board goals update. I'm trusting that you've all read it, and I'm not going to bore you with reading every one of those items, but I will highlight just a couple of areas. If you remember that our first Our overarching goal is to improve student achievement, and you adopted 4 strategic objectives, and one was about continuing the implementation of proficiency-based learning. We continue to focus on trying to ensure that we have a pathway to a 4 on all summative assessments. Our implementation with the Big Ideas Math program, 6 to 12, continues to go well and is really being supported heavily by Nate Garnett, our math coach. And I just want to thank you for, if you remember that last year, we put that in the budget and you adopted that so that we could make him full-time. And so now he's now working with our high school teachers, and we're really pleased with how that's going. We also adopted a new phonics program, if you remember, in last year's budget cycle for pre-K. We hope that this will get our youngest students more prepared for our reading instruction in kindergarten. And we're also providing more word work in kindergarten with the newly developed Teachers College unit. In both reading and math, we are focusing on promoting more student discourse, K through 12 or pre-K through 12, getting students to talk about their own thinking, which we believe will deepen understanding in these content areas. The PBE Parent Guide has been revised pre-K to 8. And Cynthia and I have our question-answer sessions scheduled in each of the towns to hear what's going well and not going so well in our schools around proficiency and any other topic. Our first one will be is scheduled for February 28th at Pownell Elementary School. And then I know that, Valley, you emailed some specific questions for the middle school and the high school. So this evening I have Ray Grogan and Jen Gulko here to kind of follow up on that. And I think we'll start with Ray at the middle level, and he'll kind of report out on how proficiency is going there, and then we'll turn it over to Jen.
Okay, Ray Grogan, Freeport Middle School principal. I did get a chance to read the questions that were sent over. In general, kind of the quick changes from this year, from last year, is the reporting system that the parents and the kids see is a lot cleaner and easier to see. They see a clear habits of work and a clear content grade on the first page. So that's, in reporting back from hearing from parents and students and teachers, very pleased with that. One of the questions specifically asked was around honor roll. That's a kind of a question around, because all middle schools don't have an honor roll. With that is something that, we have decided that we wanted to stay with. When we switched over last year for the first time, last year when we had that, we did have a larger number at the high honors than the regular honors, and so we did kind of tweak that out a little bit this year to add a distinguished honors, high honors, and honors. And right now there's currently about the same number of people that are at the distinguished as there are at the high and the regular honors below that. With that, and I think that that's always something fluid. We want to make sure we're recognizing enough kids, and we want to make sure there's a little bit of differentiation between that. So that's something that, we're always looking at. I did think it was kind of ironic that the question was, we have too many people at the high. When I was here last year, the question was, how come no kids can get to 3.5 and 4 with that? So to kind of made me reflect on the questions that we had last year with that. I don't know if there's any other specific questions for the 6-8 level.
So Ray, I had one here that was actually for high school and middle school. It's about multiple pathways and project-based learning. That's one of the things that is not on the top of the list of implementation of PBE, as it hasn't been one of the areas that created a lot of controversy. But that's something that was part of the goal, to create more pathways for learning, and also to hopefully get to the point where we can have more hands-on learning too.
Well, I think that, the idea of hands-on learning goes with any sort of reporting system. It's just good practice with that. And I would say that's something that we're continually working on to get better and better at. But that takes, a lot of teacher time to develop those units, those projects, try and refine them, and especially they're even better when they can be interdisciplinary. So having that common time among teachers with that, and I would say, where we're probably the best at that right now would be, within the 8th grade program with the Flex program, where they have a class period built into their day where they're always doing some sort of interdisciplinary project-based learning with that. In the 6th and 7th grade, it's a little more, within each class. I think, both teams are planning on the 7th grade, planning some things, with westward expansion coming up. And, so I think it's always an area that we're looking to get better on, because we definitely recognize that the more hands-on and doing, the kids remember it better and there's deeper learning. But I don't think that has anything to do with proficiency. That's just good teaching.
Did you say you have one more? Sure, go ahead. I think you're up again.
Sorry, and this is one that I didn't include in the list, but I emailed it to you. And this is about collaborative work, and it's actually for the middle and high school and for all the schools. But since you both are here, then this is the question. Is there any effort to basically ask teachers to ensure that when kids work in a group, which is what we're trying to teach them to do for their future work lives, trying to equip them with 21st century skills and all that, that they actually understand how to work within a team. Because I've heard a little feedback, and I've had personal experience with the dynamics of the groups not being exactly what we would want them to be in terms of equitable work for each member of the group. When they do a presentation after a group, how the presentation is structured so that everybody has equal opportunity to present and all that. And it seems that sometimes group work creates friction and creates anxiety that really isn't the point of what we're trying to do. We're trying to teach the kids to collaborate and to contribute equally and to compromise when necessary, and sometimes there's not enough coaching there for the kids to be able to do that when working in groups.
I think you're absolutely right. All those things do happen in groups with kids, with adults, with anything. And I think that's one thing that the teachers, in September, you put groups together. You don't know the kids. You're working, on that, and there's some parts that are definitely taught to, some that are. To the whole class, it's whole class instruction on, this is what each role needs to be. And then there's some kids that do need more individual. Is it an area we can improve on? Probably we could all improve on that with, what the kids are doing and what we're doing to help support the kids on that. I think, any parent that had, specific concerns around a project or teacher, I definitely recommend them to get in touch with the teacher directly or get in touch with me. Because there's a lot of times that, a parent, might come to us about something. We have no idea because the kid looks as happy and as, productive in that group as possible or in that situation. So I'd really, if a parent has reached out to you, definitely encourage them to reach out to us directly so we can address that.
To follow up on the previous speaker's comment, I just was wondering, so is the answer to that question regarding group work that we aren't doing anything proactively to encourage group, so in college I took a group, I think it was group dynamics or something, yeah, right? So you learn the different roles, that people take on when you're in a group setting where you have the leader and then you have the people who contribute ideas, and that sort of idea of collaboration between kids. We don't do anything at
I
the
would
middle
say
school
that
level
would vary by teacher and by project, where some teachers are much stronger at that with, here's the project, here's the roles, here's what you all need to do. Other times, there's also some learning for the kids to get together and kind of try to figure that out. So, sometimes when you're teaching, you give the kids all the resources and say, find it. Sometimes you're teaching them how to find the resources on their own. So I think there is some kind of push and pull both ways. Some we want the kids figuring out a little bit, but other times we do want to do some direct instruction around that.
little things like, teaching them how to brainstorm and put all ideas on the table,
Yeah.
and that you don't rule out things until
Yeah.
you go back and revisit that list. That kind of
Yeah.
stuff is just very
Yeah.
basic group work that I'm just wondering if we're implementing.
When I've sat in with teams when we're developing projects and working on that, we've talked about how the groups are going to come together and the roles. I think, after this conversation, I'll probably reach back to the teams to talk about what they feel like their level of instruction has been, and if that's something that we need to focus more on with that. But and I would just encourage, if you or anyone else, your kid's in that situation that they don't feel like they have it, definitely reach out to us, because it's much easier for me to go to a teacher and say, this group in this project feels like they weren't coached well enough to there, because then I can have really specific conversations with specific feedback to go and say to all 4 teams, say, there's feedback we're not doing enough coaching. Everyone thinks it's someone else's team, so it's not very specific feedback, so it's kind of useless, because they know we're not talking about that team. So like the more specific that feedback can be for me or the teacher, it's so much easier and so much more meaningful to having change.
And I think while this is a great conversation about team building, we're trying to get through our strategic goals and PBE specifically in this one, and then we still have 3 more strategic objectives. I just keeping mindful of our agenda, which is quite packed for the evening. So if you had a PBE question, Maddie, I'd love to hear it.
I was just going to suggest that this whole concept might fit well into habits of work.
Absolutely. No, I think you're absolutely right. No, and we'll definitely bring it back and, talk about that idea of, are we doing enough around that? Because, we have started having those conversations, this year around how do we improve on the direct instruction around habits of work?
Because the risk of it not going well is that you have students that don't want to work in teams, and
Yep.
that's not good for anyone's future.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Shorter than Ray. Good evening, Jen Gulko, the principal of the high school. I think what I'll try to do is address some of the other questions that were sent. And then if you have any questions about things that Ray spoke about. I'm also back here in 2 weeks when I present the program of studies. So some of the questions might pertain to that, such as multiple pathways that's included in the program of studies. So one question was about, with the shift to 0 to 100 grading, how are we working to monitor grade inflation or deflation? One of the things I can say is we only have 1 quarter of grades. As our wonderful student reps shared, this is midterms week, so quarter 2 has not closed out. So we don't really have a pattern of data to look at yet. I think we'll know much better even at the end of the semester, but at the end of the year. And I will say that we anticipate changes in grades and where students will fall, with habits of work being removed from those scores. For some students, habits of work really boosted their grade, and their organization, participation, things like that increased the level of success they had in a class. Whereas for other students who had really strong content skills and knowledge, but were terribly disorganized, turning in things late, those 2 grades were mixed together. And so I think we'll be looking at what the patterns are of the grading, because half the school is in this situation of having habits of work pulled out. Another question was about reporting through PowerSchool and the frequency of that. I think I would echo what Ray said. When we know directly that there's an issue with a particular class or particular teacher with a particular student, that's much different feedback that I can give and address with a teacher. And so we always encourage parents to reach out. Follow-up to that question was, what are we doing proactively? I think we're constantly trying to support teachers in how they're making sure that they're giving students regular feedback. I will say that with the shift of an emphasis on summative assessment, there are fewer grades in the grade book. At the high school, formative assessments are still part of our grade, but it varies. Sometimes teachers are giving formative assessments, which the essence of a formative is to give feedback to the student and the teacher about how they're making progress. Sometimes those are in PowerSchool and sometimes they're not. So I do think that that's a shift for people. I know that high school students don't always fully share with parents all of the feedback that they're getting, but it is one way that they could see. Many of our teachers are using Google Classroom, and so you might be able to see the type of feedback that that teachers are giving to students. For example, 2 of our PLC teams right now are working on using technology for formative feedback. So they're using tools such as highlighter tools to go through an essay and code it. Yellow means this, red means this, green means this, in terms of what you did well or what you might need to revise in a piece of work. So students could show you that. They might not be as open to showing you that, but that is one way that parents could see a little bit more information about feedback. Reassessment policy, this is something that we're constantly working on. There's a wide variance from department to department, and there always has been. I think one thing to note is that some teachers have always had some sort of reassessment that they allowed, whether it was retakes or test corrections, whereas other teachers may have never offered those opportunities in the past. So I can say that our retake policy or reassessment policy is more consistent for the 9th and 10th graders than it ever has been in the past, because we have said students need to have an opportunity to be able to reassess for summative assessments. A challenge, we've seen some benefits of shifting to the 0 to 100 scale. I would say a significant challenge is that in the past, when students scored in the distinguished or 4 category, they did not reassess. Right now, students are getting a 93 or a 94, which is distinguished, and wanting to reassess to get a 95 or a 96. And there's some significant concerns that that's not manageable for teachers to keep up with that. And so it's something that we definitely have to look at. In all of these practices that I'm mentioning, in the last 2 years, I've shared that, excuse me, I'm trying not to cough into the microphone, is that we are constantly, attending workshops and visiting other schools. We have a couple of things coming up, and one is a visit to Bonnie Eagle High School in 2 weeks, and then I have my principal's PLC that I meet with 3 times a year, and we do a resource share at both of those events. So all of the schools that are part of the League of Innovative Schools come and share an example of a reassessment of policy, a transcript, all sorts of things that would pertain to the proficiency-based practices that they're working on. So reassessment is constantly something that we're looking at, and we'll continue to do that. Another question is, what happens if a student in the 9th or 10th grade currently passes a class, because the policy that we implemented at the beginning of this year is that their credits awarded are based on their final course grade, and their final course grade is an average of the standards of that class. And the question is, what if they do not pass, they're not successful in one of those standards? And the answer to that is they would pass that class if overall it's a passing grade. We have decided, that was part of our process last year, that we would be looking at overall performance in a course as the average of the standards. Again, something that we implemented though is if a student is struggling in a particular standard, we've said that if they're scoring at a 76 or below, that the following year we will mandate a intervention class, that they have to move on with support. Something else that we would certainly encourage is that if a teacher saw the student was, significantly struggling in one standard, that they would teach to that and put in some quick interventions there. And then 2 more. One is, how are we working on vertical alignment? I think we were really happy with last Friday's PLD day. So Ray, myself, Assistant Principal Charlie Mellon, and Will Pitton from Durham, the 4 of us, along with Lisa Hogan and Nate Garnett, our coaches, planned a full vertical day for all of our departments other than PE and health, who had to attend another workshop. And so we spent the day together, did some team building from teachers 6 through 12. And then we focused on every single teacher brought a piece of student work and an assessment, and we looked at those. Each department went through their standards and scoring criteria from 6th grade through 12th grade as a whole group. And then the third portion of the day was a strategy share and discussion about how we are teaching and assessing habits of work. So that's the first vertical meeting this year. Our next one is the half PLD day in March. So we're really looking forward to building collegial relationships 6 through 12. And also, having a stronger student lens of what's the student experience from grades 6 through 12. What are we asking them to do, and how are we helping them progress? So we're really excited about that work. That's things we've done kind of in pieces. Since I've been here, in the 4 years that I've been here, we've never done a full day like that. And so we're really looking forward to building on that. And then the last question is, how are we gathering staff feedback? The leadership team at the high school put together a survey for our teachers. And basically what we did was the document that was shared with the board in the summertime, and then community and parents and our staff. We did our survey on each and every one of those kind of tenets of instructional practices that we're working on. Right now we have a good response. We have 36 out of 53 teachers who have responded, and we're doing some poking and prodding I would love to get 100%. And so this coming Tuesday, the leadership team, along with our coach from GSP, Gene Hager, we're looking at the data and then, trying to identify patterns and trends of what's working. Are there any things that we could immediately remedy, or are there things that we need to think about implementing or changing for next year? I think that's all the questions.
Thank you. Everyone good with John? All right, thanks.
Okay, the second board objective is focused on improving teacher and administrative effectiveness. I'm happy to report that our EdTech evaluation tool has been completed and is currently being piloted in each of our schools. Revisions have also been finished for the rubrics for our psychologist and instructional strategist. And observations are being completed with all staff with the focus on providing feedback that leads to continuous improvement. And currently I'm in the process of completing the mid-year review with all my administrators. The creation of the strategic plan is the third board objective, and you'll be reviewing the mission vision statement tonight. Cynthia and I met with Mary Jane, the facilitator, this week to look at next steps, and she has assured us that we are on track to having this plan completed by the end of the year. And then our last objective was about incorporating engagement with stakeholders, and I've listed a variety of ways that we've been doing that. And so we continue to engage with appropriate stakeholders depending on our goal. It's been great having Rhea serve on the strategic planning committee, and to have our student board reps, as well as we now have a student rep on our proficiency-based committee. I feel like their voices have really been invaluable. In addition, on PBE, we're starting to look at creating videos that we can post on our website to really have parents be able to access how we do things like reassessing a student on a project. And I think that's it for the board updates, unless there are specific questions.
Any questions? Yep, Valley.
So Becky, when you listed the district committees, PEPG, PBE, Math Committee, Safety Committee, Dropout Prevention, do those committees have members of the public, students, parents, so that feedback can actually get to those committees from all stakeholder groups? Or how do those committees actually gather feedback from stakeholder groups?
So I think it would depend on the committee. So no, we don't have like a parent rep. We don't have parents serving on the PEPG, which is the teacher evaluation, unless the board member that happens to be serving on that is is also a parent, and in this case, that's not the case. And so we don't really seek out, to me, it depends on the committee about who we're seeking feedback from. So with the teacher evaluation system, we don't really seek parental feedback on that one. So I would say it depends on the committee.
But PBE has parents on it.
PBE has parents on it, and there was a second parent that just was recommended to be on it, and so I'll be reaching out to that person. I think that's one that's really important to have a parent voice on. Our math committees, it's really more about like what kind of training and support do we need to provide our teachers that are implementing those new programs, so we don't have a parent set on those committees.
So I assume that the teachers sitting in these committees have feedback from parents that they bring to the committee, because there's feedback that comes from parents that could be useful to any of these committees, and not necessarily does that mean that there need to be a parent in each committee, but it would be, in my view, important to have some way of reflecting parent feedback if there is any, through whichever means necessary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maddie?
Just a quick correction, there are currently 2 parents serving on the PBE committee. We added Betsy Peters.
Oh, thank you. So soon we'll have 3.
And I want to add for the community, which hopefully they have filled out the surveys, but for input from parents and community, the 2 that are important that aren't listed there are the satisfaction survey and the exit survey, and that's collecting feedback directly from parents.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so board comments and committee reports. So board information exchange, agenda requests. Becky had mentioned that we had that regional group that we met with last night. I thought that was very interesting and beneficial. There were folks from Brunswick who hosted the event, MSAD 75, which is Topsom, Bodenham, Harpswell, RSU 1, which is Bath, Woolwich, Aroostook, and Phippsburg, and then Lisbon. So kind of our surrounding areas, to the north and west of us. And I thought it was very interesting, and I think the goals of the next ones, this one was sort of an introduction, but, focusing on specific areas that people on boards might be interested in, like finance or communications or just some best practice sharing, which I think is really helpful. So I just wanted to throw that out there as one of the things that I thought was everybody should know about. And if you can make it on the 26th, definitely try, because I thought it was really helpful. So other requests, information to share? Maddie?
There's a book that we did a little exercise from last night, How to Not Be a Terrible Board Member. Yes. How to Not Be a Terrible School Board Member.
School board member, yes.
Specifically, which was hilarious and good opportunity for reflection. So we apparently own a copy. I look forward to reading it. It'll be entertaining and educational, and I think it'd be great if maybe we could all read it, or maybe do some work with it this summer when we do our offsite.
It's actually interesting. That's where the book came from. Was Becky and I had looked about putting it on, talking about it at last year's agenda for the retreat in August, and I think we decided we had other things to sort of fill that space. But yeah, you're certainly welcome. I currently have the copy. It's actually in my bag. But yeah, you're certainly well. I'll hand it off to you to take a read through. It's basically 28 little stories about bad decision making on the behalf of board members. I don't know if they're actual stories, maybe they're based on some truth, I'm sure, but very, very real situations. The one we did last night as a quick case study was about the closing of a school and sort of the emotional intensity of something like that, and being in a room full of people that are really unhappy about a decision that you make as a board and how to react. Seriously, it was making me sweat just thinking about it. It was
It is.
Well, and that was the scenario, but the lesson was how to not project negative energy.
Right.
Which was hilarious and gave me a pause for reflection.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was interesting for sure. So, other agenda requests? Yes.
So, I'd like to ask the board if we could have a future workshop on diversity and inclusion in RSU 5. I'm really interested to hear from administrators on how we're making sure all of our students feel included despite their differences, how they may be different, and also how, you know, we can support all of our students and promote understanding.
Okay. So as a board, you know, how this generally rolls is if we feel, most of the board feels like that would be a beneficial topic for us to undertake. You know, we generally keep a list of ideas for meetings and go through them in the summer at our retreat for what we're going to build our work plan for next year. Sometimes we have gaps in our existing work plan where we could fit things in. Just looking at the work plan, I'm not sure that would fit in this year just yet, but if others feel like that would be a beneficial information share, then we'll make sure it definitely gets on that list for a future meeting. General nodding would be okay. Maddie?
I would definitely support it. I think we have a inaccurate tendency in this state to think we don't need to talk about diversity because of our demographic, our skin color, and there are many types of diversity and many types of inclusion that need to be talked about in today's world, and so I would support.
I would say, based on our demographics, we probably need it more than anybody, right? And we're trying to raise good human beings. So, anybody opposed to that idea? No? Okay. Thank you. Duly noted. Any other requests, comments, board report outs that aren't finance, strategic, or policy?
So I have one question. For the group that you guys attended last night, will there be an agenda posted somewhere so we can see what the topics or workshops will be ahead of time?
They did send out an agenda for this meeting. Okay. I would imagine we'll probably have an agenda. I don't know if the superintendents were putting together, basically the consensus in the room was, yes, we'd like to do this quarterly or whatever. And then the superintendents were going to get together and hammer out the details. So if you guys already know, then you could let us know, and or as it gets closer.
We don't have an agenda set, just the time.
Just the date.
Yep.
Okay.
But there were a number of topics that were whiteboarded for like at least a couple more meetings, so even just those general topics could be shared.
If you took a picture of the whiteboard.
Yeah.
I'm sure Paul has them.
Yeah.
Lindsay.
I just wanted to share how valuable and rewarding it was as a board member to be invited to witness the literacy instruction that's going on in Moore Street School. You know, at a board level, we hem and haw over whether or not to fund things, and to be able to come full circle and see the impact that this is having on our board goal of improving. I forgot the wording. Improving
student achievement.
Student achievement. Thank you. And I also just found it really kind of moving on a personal level to see throughout the whole hierarchy of our school system, people recognizing that there's room to learn at any phase of life, in any position, in any job. I just was really grateful to witness that. Our teachers being open to having instructors come in and teach them in the moment with kids there, and have kids witness their teachers learning how to be better teachers is just awesome. Thank you.
Talk about good modeling, right? How to accept feedback and.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I agree with that. And I also wanted to circle back to the workshop that was scheduled for the meeting that was canceled because of weather. the one on emotional supports. And I would like to request that we add it to an agenda sooner rather than later. I would like to know exactly what it is, at what level we're providing supports, and I just want to make sure that we're providing enough so that we are doing preventive work and not crisis management. So I don't know exactly where we're at on the spectrum, but over the course of the last couple of years, I've had opportunity to hear comments to the effect that with increasing enrollment and increasing anxiety in students nationwide and worldwide, it's something to keep a really close eye to. So if we have to attend to a need, it would be, in my estimation, better to not wait a year and a half and wait for the next budget cycle. So if we could talk about it at least and find out what it is that we're doing and assess where there is a need, I would prefer to do it before this budget be approved.
Mara.
So I had a different comment, but I agree. I wanted to just echo the prior speaker. Since we have a shortage in our state of behavioral health providers for children, I wholeheartedly agree that it would be great to have that information for this budget cycle too, to know if we have needs. The other comment that I wanted to make was a request actually for our student reps. I was wondering if we could hear what's kind of going on with the student council, or if there's any issues like at the school level. Not right now, at a future meeting. I was wondering, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I've just thought that might be kind of an interesting thing to have included in your updates or reports in the future.
All right. Finance Committee, Kate.
Okay. The Finance Committee has been meeting as frequently as we can. We met December 12th, December 18th, January 16th. We just met tonight again. We're hammering away at our work to look at the cost-sharing formula. We've been doing a lot of research, digging into the state statute, asking the attorney some questions, getting feedback from those that were on the original RPC Planning Committee. I think we're done almost with our fact finding, and we're ready to start really looking at the different levers that we can pull to change the formula and see what sort of recommendations, narrow our recommendations down to something we can bring to the board. Other than the cost-sharing formula, at our last meeting, we did have a discussion with, we had Dennis Willett come to our meeting. He gave us an update on the softball field drainage. We had to do some additional work there because the infield was washing away, so that work's been completed and it seems to have fixed the issue. And then we also were talking about the next steps for the Tri-Town Track and Field Committee to close out the remaining funds that they have and hand it over to us. We're looking at putting that towards the PA system, and we're short a little bit, so we're gonna have to come up with some additional funds through savings in this year's budget to cover that. And then we also talked about the next steps on solar power, just so we could get back to the town of Freeport. They had come and visited us, the Finance Committee, in a previous meeting and talked about what they're looking at doing with the town and asking if we wanted to collaborate with them on a solar project. And the Finance Committee decided that we would like them to, as soon as the Sustainability Committee is up and running, for the town to be working with that committee on that solar power option. And that was it. Did I cover everything?
Questions? Maddie.
Did you meet today?
Yes.
Yes.
So I just want to I'm sorry if I missed this somehow, but are we going to get a recommendation that's going to impact this year's budget or no?
It's hard to say. I don't want to overpromise. I think there's potential. I'm not going to rule it out. I think that we're ready to start really looking at the options. So we still have quite a few months to go, but the issue would be then making sure we get it approved at the board, get a recommendation, present it to the board, fit it in at a meeting, and then bring it to a vote before we end school this year and enter the next. So I just want to make sure that I think we can get to a point where we're ready to have a recommendation, but not yet ready to present, because that's going to take some work for us to prepare a presentation for the board, and it's hard to squeeze it in around other priorities. So I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver at this point, but I'm optimistic that we can get it done. We'll do our best to try to get it done, but I also don't want to rush it.
Yeah. Understood, and I'm grateful for the work that you guys are doing. It's not work that that I'm capable of doing, but I know it's a big, hairy, audacious goal. I think it's a big goal for us as a board too, but I do think it's something we should wrestle with this year. I think the members of our communities would like to see us wrestle with it this year, and I think that if we put it off, we'll have some unhappy community members, but I hear what you're saying, and just that's my request.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Yep.
Sorry, I'll make this quick. One clarification. So there's a note here about Pownell, and if the municipality were to become a minimum receiver, they would not get the state subsidy, the special ed adjustment.
Right.
Is that the case for any municipality that enters minimum receivership now?
Yes.
So Freeport is grandfathered in
Yes.
effect.
Yep.
It was because when we became our understanding from the discussions with the state was they received that because they were a minimum receiver when we entered the RSU. So if either of the other two towns were to become minimum receivers, that wouldn't necessarily automatically come with it.
Okay, but does that apply to other RSUs that may have municipalities that
were?
Yeah.
I mean, there are other people that have special education adjustments. I mean, if you look at there, so.
But what I'm saying is, the case that Pownell is facing now, is there a similar municipality in another district that might face the same situation where they're a minimum receiver and not get the adjustment? Is that what's being done
everybody.
statewide?
Yeah.
Yes. It's just
you got
kind
it.
of
If you when you formed, you either got it
Yeah.
or you didn't, and you can't get it later.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder why.
I don't know.
I don't know, they just kind of did away with that mechanism and grandfathered those that were getting it. And so there's no other real reason that Freeport gets it except they got it before, except for it is the state's mechanism of they have to meet like a minimum of 3% of state education funding for minimum receivers. So I mean, that puts you in there, and you can sometimes Freeport can sometimes get state subsidy.
And the special education.
And the special education adjustment.
Which we can't figure out why that is either.
It's till they get to the 3%.
Oh, it's to get to the 3% number.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Strategic communications.
That's me. Microphone. We've been looking at the results of the exit survey and figuring out a way to provide that information that makes sense. And we're almost there. We probably need another meeting to finish that up. And that will be presented when Jenny does her semi-annual, is it semi-annual or annual? Annual migration update, what's going on in and out of the district. And then we began a conversation about how often to implement the satisfaction survey, whether it should be every 2 years or every 3 years. And we were kind of divided, and we were missing a committee member, so we decided to hold off on the vote for that because there's pros and cons of each. So that's that.
Great. Any questions for strategic communications? All right. So policy.
Okay, it's the pale pink sheet in your your package there. And we met twice since our last meeting. As you can see on the front side, there are 5 policies that were reviewed with no changes. And we had 5 policies to bring to the board, which Cynthia will be talking about. And at both meetings, we didn't get to all of the policies on the agenda, so there are several there that are going to the next meeting. But one other to mention is the JJE student fundraising activities. We thought we were ready to bring that to the board, and with information that has come to us and questions and whatnot, we need to look at that one again. And we will be looking at that one, student fundraising activities, at our next meeting on February 8th, and then be ready to bring it to the board. So that was our meeting.
Can I ask a question on one of the policies you guys decided not to change? And I think and maybe it's a different one, but inventories. I think that was one that we discussed as a finance committee and sent it to the policy committee because it didn't appear that we were doing any sort of inventory of all of our equipment throughout the district. I'm just curious as to, okay.
Yeah, so when we got talking about it, we decided there was nothing preventing us from doing that inventory by the policy, and that it should be more in a procedural requirement, and not necessarily in policy.
Okay, so it's something that's going to get done, but not via the policy.
Correct.
Okay. Thanks.
Ready for me? Good evening. So I'd like to go through, we have 5 policies. I'd like to do the first one, and then the third and fourth one on the list, because Jen Gulko is here, and I asked her just to hang around in case there were questions specifically about something in the policy, because they're related to the high school. And this one, and Ray, if he's still here. Oh, no, he's gone. Okay. So the first one, JIC, System-Wide Student Code of Conduct. This evening, I did get an email, and then this evening I had like 2 or 3 quick conversations with people about different pieces, so I think I'm going to take you through this one. I had talked about it, or thought about in my mind how I was going to proceed with this, and I had it all planned, and then now I've changed my mind based on the conversations that I've had. So the biggest thing you'll notice for revisions is that the formatting of it was totally different than any other policy we had. So we took off the word article on each section, and there was placement of policies under categories, and I can understand why it was put that way, but we don't do any of our other policies that way. So all of the policies, if you look at the last page for cross-referencing, are listed at the end instead. That's just to stay consistent with the formatting of all our other policies. So that's the overall formatting change. And then excuse me, I'd like to call your attention to page 3 of 6. And under D, discrimination and harassment. So I had a quick conversation right before the meeting because sexual orientation isn't included in both sections. The references are to law and a couple of other policies. So we have policy AC, discrimination, and we have ACAA, which is the harassment policy. And so we don't have, I think, sexual orientation in the other. But then I was looking at some other language, and I was trying to get the statute while we were talking. I think what I'd like to do is recommend that we make a change that says students should not discriminate against other students or harass, and then on the basis, and include all of those, because I've seen that in language and writing. Does everyone think that that makes a good upgrade for that one? Okay, so that's what I'll do before second read. for that one. And we can, if we need to review, what I will do is on our February 8th policy committee meeting, I'm looking at two of my members, I'll have that all drafted so that you can quickly see that change before we bring it back to second read.
I had a comment. Actually, could we also add gender identity to that list?
I'll check and see if it's in the law, because that's not a law reference. But I can also make a call to that. So I'll make a note to follow up with that.
Okay.
Section.
Maybe in the bullying, I'm not sure if.
Well, that's the thing. A lot of these a lot of the cross references address specificity, and I think you had an email that I'm going to get to in a minute that talks about what you're talking about in two other policies that we have as well. It's hard because you don't know all the policy, right? I'm trying to get so I know them all, but okay. So I'll just make a note for sexual identity.
Cynthia, on D, I would just change that sentence, so students should not discriminate or harass against other students. I think you had the or harass happening later in the sentence. And then just a question on the basis of, since they're two different lists, would you use the first list?
I would be inclusive of all the things that are there.
Thank you.
I wouldn't leave out any of the word. So the next change is if you go to G, we added the words tobacco use and vaping because we need to keep up with the time and what's really happening in our schools, and added that sentence, this prohibition also applies to e-cigarettes and products and paraphernalia associated with vaping. And then we added at the bottom of that page, the athletic co-curricular activities, because that is also part of the school day. So that's just an addition there. And then on the next page, 5, this was an oversight none of us caught at the policy committee meeting, but thank you to somebody who read it very, very carefully. Number 4, if you look at the next to the last sentence in number 4, whenever practicable, the law enforcement should be called to restrain or physically remove the it says complaint student, and it should say compliant. So we're going to fix that before we bring it.
Name wrong sometimes, but I happen to pick up on that.
It didn't come up in like a search or anything. And then to go back and address Mara's question, which is back on code of conduct. So that bullet 3, it's right in the center of the page.
What page?
Page 1. I'm going back to the beginning. Bullet 3, at any time or place that such conduct directly interferes with the operations, discipline, or general welfare of the school. So the intent on that is the nexus of that was for anything related to off-campus. And I think that what addresses your question are 2 other policies, the bullying policy and hazing policy. So.
Because the bullying and hazing policies apply to treatment off campus, is that what you mean? Or student actions off campus that could impact students, is that what you mean? Or?
I think what you had suggested was, or the welfare of any, yes, those are specific to students.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then, so if there are any other questions for that one, that particular policy?
I just, when you go back and, because I think we did harassment and sexual harassment of students and non-discrimination pretty recently, and I think there was, like maybe last year or the year before, maybe 2 years ago. And there was also that interpretation that came down from the Department of Education under Obama for the interpretation of what sex was under non-discrimination, I think. So if you could just look into that.
So give me a specific task that you're looking for me to do.
I think that there was an interpretation that under the discrimination.
Okay.
That they were interpreting sex as covering gender.
Okay, I can check on that.
Yeah, I think the legal, because we had this conversation in a previous meeting where I was concerned about gender identity and all of that.
Yeah.
But the legal.
The law stated it explicit, yes.
Cover it. Even though we may not pull it out as a specific need, it's covered in the legal terminology.
But I do think that putting them together still makes sense to have the sexual orientation added in the discrimination sentence. Because right now, you can't harass them for sexual orientation, but you could discriminate against somebody for sexual orientation.
Well, no, because the interpretation of sex includes sexual orientation from a legal standpoint. That's what they did.
But why would they take it out of one but not both?
That's how they've interpreted the federal law.
But currently you have it separated in one of the lists and not in the other. So it's not consistent.
Yeah,
Right,
because
so-
they're two different laws.
Harassment and discrimination. I could definitely see like gender identity being picked up in the definition of sex, but I don't know about sexual. Well, anyway, so yeah, if you want to check back and
We'll do
when we
some
looked
homework.
at that last time, and
I think it's included in sex, and we decided to be inclusive and include sexual orientation. And I mean, we could break it out further, but I think we felt covered. If I'm remembering that.
I don't believe we added it to the policy that we talked about. I'm trying to remember exactly what policy it was. I think we
Right.
kept it as sex because the law included
Yeah,
that.
I think so, but my memory's fuzzy on it, so I'm just suggesting that
We look
you
at
could
that.
look back at
Yeah.
that.
Our
May I
intent was
suggest that
definitely to be
whatever,
inclusive.
and I'd like to suggest that regardless of what we do here and which word we use, in the document that is actually in the student handbook, that we do separate them all out and we are very explicit about what categories we're talking about, because we say sex as the umbrella word and students are not aware of all the different meanings of that category, then it's not fair to the students to say, you know, well, we told you not to do it if they don't understand exactly what's included in that category.
Okay, so we'll check in the handbooks too. Just thought I'd check with her. All right, and then I'm going to skip the next one for just a minute and go to early graduation, IKFA. The only change we made is the number of units in the second paragraph. That's like a fill in the blank because that is dependent on every high school, and so that is updated to 24. And then the additional sentence in the next paragraph is high school administration may consider students who apply during their junior year on a case-by-case basis for early graduation. So I wasn't part of this conversation because that's when I was ill. So if you do have questions about that, either Dr. Foley, who took my place, thank you, or Jen Galko could answer those. Or I might be able to answer something that may not be related to the changes, but.
I was just wondering if you graduate, say in December, or is that not considered early graduation?
So that came up today. So that was a realization that this policy is really talking about juniors who are requesting. I currently have a junior who is requesting to graduate at the end of semester 1. So even though we had reviewed this policy, I think we were really thinking about students who are graduating a full year, not a half year. So one other suggestion for when we work on this again, that the guidance team has said for their input is that they feel pretty strongly like a student needs a concrete plan of what they're going to do next. They said students who they feel really confident about early graduation are students who have said, I'm seeking early graduation because I am going to pursue this job opportunity, or I've applied to another school or another program or something. They share that they have concerns about some students who just want to be done and don't have a plan of what comes next, and worried about us not being there for support for college application or recommendations, things like that. So that might be something that the committee considers.
So would the second read of this address seniors looking to go early or no? Or does that get picked up in the case-by-case edition?
I think we just need to add some language that says that.
So Jen, have you ever had, or is it likely that any student who's not a junior may want to take advantage of this and graduate early, say a sophomore in the second year, on the second semester? Would they ever qualify?
Last year, we had a student inform us in their sophomore year that they wanted to graduate early, and so it was helpful in planning and knowing how we kind of set up that student's schedule. But there's no way that they could possibly fit in graduation requirements and everything that they would need. They wouldn't be in a place to be able to apply for any post-secondary, anything like that, at the end of their sophomore year. Even at the end of their junior year is tight. Some kids can do it. They have an incredibly packed schedule. And so for some students, we don't recommend that. So that's where that case-by-case comes in.
Yeah, but it says case by case, but only if they apply during the junior year. So what if they apply during their sophomore year? Can they?
They don't. So they don't officially apply, and they don't do this policy until their junior year. What they would do is communicate with their guidance counselor to say, "I'm thinking
Informally.
about it." Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And so usually, so far we've had one in the last 4 years that has done that their sophomore year. The others have been juniors who have let us know.
Lindsay.
I was just a little confused when I read the beginning of the last paragraph. How do you go to college without high school credit and then get high school credit? Like, it was a little bit over my head.
So my copy, I scratched out whatever the word is after enroll. I can't even see it. I scratched it out that much and wrote students who enroll after the junior year in a college from which credits are transferred. And so that to me was also unclear. And so saying, basically what they're saying is if a student enrolls and finishes their junior year, enrolls in a college, then it's successful completion of those classes that would then fulfill the requirements. Does that answer your question?
But how do you get into college without finishing high school?
Oh, you can?
Yeah. There are some schools that accept students to begin college coursework, and then some of their coursework that they take in college then, which is usually within the first semester, complete their high school requirements, because they're just ready. They might be exceptional in some way, pursuing a particular plan of study, and the college says, "We want you," and they come and they complete their high school requirements at that school.
So an example would be the student I spoke to today is a junior who's in AP Calculus. So they're beyond the high school requirements. And so that's a student who might pursue college math during what would be their senior year.
Oh, so it's not that they have necessarily left high school. But it could. But it could. You could be a full-time college student.
If you have enough
High
credits.
school degree.
We also have, so in the program of studies in the last few years, there's a program called Early College for Me. So I won't get into the details of that, but that's also state supported where students can take college level classes. So it's much more common. I mean, the number of kids who do this early graduation is definitely fewer than 4 per year. And so it's much more common that a student might be here for a full day and then at a college program for a full day or half and half, things like that.
Okay, thanks.
So I don't know how to handle this situation, but there's a member of the community who's been raising her hand. So the chair will have to decide how to handle.
Well, I mean, I guess generally we have our public comment. What's that?
Public comment.
Yeah, I mean, usually it's about things that aren't on the agenda. So if we have one specific to an item.
Does Freeport not offer college classes in the high school? Because there are other RSU 5s that do. You see what I'm saying?
So her question is, does Freeport High School offer college? I'm going to move this down a little bit. Does Freeport High School offer college classes at the high school? Currently, we have one. So we have a dual enrollment program for our what was formerly known as consumer math, which is now quantitative reasoning. So we have 10 students who are enrolled in that program right now. And so they are here at school with one of our teachers who has been made an adjunct professor by SMCC. And then they'll receive, with successful completion of that class, Freeport High School credit and SMCC credit. But that right now is the only class that we have for that. We tried for 2 for a calculus class, which is a little bit more complicated because that's a 200 level class. And our next step is thinking about pursuing English 12.
So just not necessarily college class, but AP classes. Like my daughter went to college with 9 credits because the college accepted credits from the AP classes that were taken here. So that isn't really, it's not a college course, but AP courses.
Right, based on the grade they get, right? Yeah. They're at the end of the AP, right? Okay, any other questions for early graduation? All right.
Yes, stay. The next one is graduation exercises, and so paragraph 2 has a change that takes out the word administrator, including guidance, and just puts principal there instead. So those who are not eligible to participate in the diploma ceremony for reasons beyond their control or responsibility may apply to the high school principal. So that's the person who would make the decision. And then the next paragraph down, if the high school principal with input from guidance find that the student has met the requirements and that that granting a waiver would be in the best interest of both the student and his or her class, then the principal may waive the policy to the extent that the student may participate in all senior activities other than the diploma ceremony.
Is this the idea of walking before you finish a class? So we don't do that.
Right. So I came from a school where you could walk, you had an empty diploma holder, and then get your diploma afterwards, and we do not do that.
Okay. Any questions on that one? Kate.
I just have a clarifying point on the policy, because we talked about this in the meeting, was that this is specific to students who are not eligible to participate for reasons beyond their control or responsibility. So that would be like an illness or something like that. So not like they were expelled or something like that.
So if you were one class short, if there's a class you didn't pass, you can't even apply for the waiver. You're out. Okay, Maddie.
But it's not about the walking, it's about the other activities.
Right, they're never allowed to walk.
Right.
This gives
like
them the opportunity for other
project graduation and the picnic and all that stuff.
Right.
To be part of their cohort.
Right. But only if it's something beyond their control. Okay. Any other questions on that one? Thanks, Jen.
Thank you, Jen. So we'll go back to DJ, the bidding purchasing requirements. That's the second one. And there are just 2 changes there. One is the dollar figure. I think it was probably a mistake from the last time the policy was there. Instead of $25,000, it's $250,000. And then on C, there was an addition made to the procedures for bidding and requesting proposals. The addition is the board shall be notified prior to the solicitation of bids or proposals in excess of $25,000. And the reason being that there's a lot of things that are like 10,000 and that are like snowplowing and those kinds of things that are things that are done often, and so the number's higher.
It wasn't a number at all before. I think this came from the finance committee. We were thinking that, it would be good to know if we had bids out there, because those are public. RFPs and bids are public. So if someone came to us as a board member and said, oh, so you guys are bidding out, and we all just look at them with blank stares, it might be good to have the heads up ahead of time.
Okay.
And I think the dollar amount was something, we said to Michelle, like, hey, we don't want to get super involved in the minutia day to day, but some big purchases it would be good to know about. So,
then the only other addition is the legal references. There's several added to that from before.
So the law is $250,000.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I'm glad we don't have to bid for every single thing that's $25,000 or over.
Yeah.
And then the last one, which is the educational mission and vision. You'll see the whole thing is struck out because the Strategic Planning Committee has been working its way through this process, and I'm going to defer to Dr. Foley because she has some talking points she'd like to share.
So I just want to remind the board kind of the process we went through. And I also just want to do a quick review. Your mission statement should always be kind of a one-liner. The vision statement, you want to have fit at least on one page. You don't want it too long. So I feel like we've accomplished both of those goals. Our strategic planning committee, which Ray, our student rep, has been part of that, has been working since March of 2018. We developed and implemented a community engagement plan in the spring of 2018. We had several meetings to gather input, online and paper surveys for staff, parents, students, community members. We had a separate survey for the elementary students. Then we organized and analyzed the data to identify the major ideas for the mission, vision, and action plan over the summer. And then we had more community meetings in the fall of October to identify the themes that came out in the data. And then we have been writing this mission and vision since November. Several meetings. We had a subcommittee develop the first draft, but then the whole committee has been working on this for several meetings. We've done extensive, careful development of the language to convey the input from all the students and all the groups, all the stakeholder groups. So what we're looking for tonight is your endorsement. Or if there's something that's like maybe really glaring that you want to point out, then we are having a meeting tomorrow morning. But there has been a lot of wordsmithing by that whole committee, so we're not really looking for minor edits. Thank you.
I think it's fantastic, really good work. I think it speaks to who we are and continue to strive to be, and I just want to thank everyone involved.
Thank you.
I agree. I think it's really great as well. The one thing that jumped out at me was that the last portion is kind of similar to the section under our students. They kind of seemed similarly structured, and I'm just wondering if they were both those pieces were included for a reason, or if they could be combined maybe.
The part that says students graduate, well, we need a closer. So that's our kind of closer statement, right? So, you start with the mission, then you do the parts where, we decided on those three groups of our students, our learning, our culture, and then that kind of is our closing sentence. And we really wanted to end with where we see our students at when they graduate.
When they graduate, okay. Because I was kind of just comparing the two, and I noticed we said healthy, compassionate, responsible in the first part, and then at the end we said compassionate, honest, respectful, and responsible, and I just was sort of looking at both of those. But I think they're all great things to strive for.
Yeah.
Kate.
Can we change RSU 5 to RSU number 5?
That was going to be my only edit, was the consistency of how we refer to RSU 5 in the mission. I mean, in the policies.
This came up in a side conversation, but I'm going to let you take this, Dr. Foley.
No, I think if the board feels strongly, I just visually hate the way it looks.
Yes, I don't
I'm
like it
totally
either.
fine with that, but let's make them all one way or the other.
And we
That's my
decided to
only
do
concern.
it the other, right?
Yeah, like we've been putting the NO in every other policy, and so that would. But I agree with you. I don't like
isn't
the
our
NO.
logo RSU 5?
Both of them are legal.
Correct.
I think the board had wanted it to be consistent, but both are legal. So you can go
Maybe we
either
were talking about consistency in the policies only.
Right. So when we put,
yes,
but
yes.
so when we
we
put
publish this,
right,
we
so
don't-
put number 5. But when you publish this on the website, do it however you like.
or
Oh,
on your little sheet.
Yeah.
That's a nice little compromise.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm fine with
I don't have any preference outside of the policy.
Oh, okay. Great.
Okay.
I can live with that.
And there's one thing that I wanted to point out. The committee had talked about bolding the mission and then bolding the last closer sentence.
Oh.
So that we have like the beginning and the end of what we do and what students are like when they graduate. And I also wanted to point out that this sounds maybe not our current reality, But that's the whole point. This is supposed to be aspirational. So I want for anybody in the community reading this not to think that we assume that this is a done deal. This is what we have accomplished. No, this is what we would like to accomplish.
We're not patting ourselves on the back. We're setting the path for where we want to get to.
Yes, good.
Any other comments? Yep.
I was on the committee, so I'm sorry I'm bringing this up now, but I think I can't remember if this is stylistic or grammatical, whatever, but there's commas in a series, and I think today now you add a comma before and.
So after the word respectful?
In the last sentence, it's respectful, comma, and responsible. You can do either. Okay, I feel like it has shifted from either to adding the comma, but I wanted to say it so somebody thinks about it and we can decide one way or the other or whatever.
Perfect.
Because we have to be grammatically correct in our school stuff.
Especially in this, yeah.
We'll just check the rule, double check.
No, we're going to be honest and respectful and responsible people. Doesn't mean we know where the comma goes. I mean, that's a byproduct. Either one works. Yeah. Okay, any other comments or commas?
But it might be respectful and responsible citizens, like that as a group.
Well, that.
Instead of respectful, comma, right? It might be intended that it's respectful and responsible citizens. In that case, you wouldn't need the comma.
Oh, yeah.
It depends on how
I
you read
actually
it.
like that reading better.
Okay. So we'll leave as is?
So no comma.
So it is.
Okay.
So could I ask a quick question, Michelle?
Mm-hmm.
So the way that I have it written is that with JIC and the third policy, IKFA, so if we're approving all these for first read, those two will be coming back with some revision, and the others will be as is. Is that what you, okay. Just to kind of summarize.
Well, I mean, no, because
No?
education, vision, and mission, we're changing it to RSU number 5.
Okay, a small edit there.
Yeah, and bold.
And bold, okay.
Yeah, but I think the other two
And the comma?
were no changes.
No, I think we decided on no comment.
Okay.
Yeah, we decided on no comma.
Yes.
Well, I think they're back to the comma here. I don't know what
Do we
happened.
need to vote on the comma?
We'll debate the comma.
Sorry to bring us back to the conduct policy, but I had a question about
Oh, that's true, too. Yep. So I think you're right.
its coverage of sexual assault and misconduct. I noticed that wasn't anywhere in there. Is that because each section is tied to legal, something in law, or
We have policies around,
separate policies, right, around those, but this doesn't refer to any of those other policies, and I noticed a lot of them, like the bullying and those are referred to in here and have their own sections, but the, like, sexual abuse or assault doesn't have its section in the conduct policy that I could find anywhere.
Right.
There's just the violence, section.
So would it fall under the sexual harassment policy? Because there is one of those.
yeah, I think if you look at all the cross-references,
They would cover it. Okay. Could we add language, if it says sexual assault in one of our other policies, could we add that language into
it's a
whichever?
it's a cross-reference, okay.
Into whichever section that would go in, whether it's the harassment or the violence or.
Well, we're pulling all the cross references out.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right. But
No,
I know
they're
they're
going
all.
at the end, though.
Well, right.
And then the language from whatever policy, could we like insert that into a paragraph? Do you see what I'm saying? Not just a cross-reference, but also if one of the other policies covers that, could we insert it into whatever section in this policy, corresponds to that one?
Right, I guess the question is like, why
I
did some
worry
of these
about
things rise to the
redundancies.
level
Yeah.
of having their own shout-out, if you will, in the code of conduct, where that one does not?
The sexual assault policy we have, is that more reporting? What is that one?
So the
Is
bullying
in
one,
training?
it has several sections of reporting to it.
Oh, it's bullying.
Yeah, JICK. It's got 4 forms for reporting.
I thought we had like the special training for educators for reporting of sexual.
Yes, that's what we
Abuse.
just adopted.
Yeah.
Yes.
So mandatory reporters.
So it might not. We might have a policy, but it might. Did you open it and read it? Did you find one that's specific to sexual assault?
Not assault. I saw the sexual abuse prevention one.
Okay.
And it does address both students when there's an age difference or maturity difference and, adults. So that covers students, I believe, as well. The sexual abuse prevention policy. But I don't think there's a separate, sexual assault, sexual misconduct policy that I saw.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I think the one that you're talking about is the one we just reviewed last fall.
And
Was that
that,
one?
sorry, no.
And it was about training of teachers to identify it, right?
Right.
Well, I mean, I guess in the broadest sense, I mean, sexual assault would fall under violence and threats, right? I mean, whether it's a fist fight or a sexual assault, I think that those would both fall under the prohibited behavior.
Right.
But I mean, could you specifically note it in there? I guess that's just something for you to maybe to take a look at.
We'll have to discuss it at policy.
Okay.
Yeah, because now I'm wondering, do we need to have a policy for that? Or do we have a policy that covers it?
Well, I'll have to
Yeah.
look it up.
Yeah.
I think there's lots of questions about, so I think it's just something we'll have to revisit.
Can you put your mic on?
I think it's important to have assault differentiated from harassment, at least if that's what we're discussing, because they're different legal terms.
Okay.
All right.
So can I get a?
Do you have what you need for your next steps?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have
So-
to bring this back to policy committee.
Yeah.
For JSC.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion for the first read of these policies, as noted. Valley, second. Kate, all those in favor? Okay, none opposed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so unfinished business. Consideration and approval to enter into the interlocal agreement with the Greater Sebago Education Alliance Regional Service Center.
One of the questions that I think Valley or somebody requested was about the budget, and so I did receive that today, so I'm just going to pass that out. I also have Mick's phone number, and he's watching our board meeting tonight. In case there are questions around this, because Michelle has also reviewed it a little bit, so we can attempt to answer your questions, because I know this is late arriving.
Lick tie, not me.
Yes, yes.
Don't ask me, I
Yeah.
don't know.
And here's the other one. So what I'm passing out to you is the budget that they have for this year. That's pretty solid, the one they're currently operating under. And then the budget for next year, which is still being tweaked because things keep moving. So they just received a FEDIS grant so that they can do the Leadership Academy, and Mick's going to be meeting with the DOE to kind of figure out the details around that, about how that kind of fits in, because part of that grant could not be tied directly to the regional center. So I think it's RSU 6 that's acting as the fiscal agent around that. Just a reminder that the 3 areas that we would probably be participating in, as well as the other districts, would be for professional development, the food co-op, and substitute fares. And there was a question that I think I received today from somebody asking about how does the food co-op work. And when we kind of reached out and asked the state about that, we would have the option of possibly joining this year with the food co-op, or we could wait and join next year. And I would just rely on Erin to do whatever that she feels, would benefit us the most on that if you decide to join the regional center, because either way we would be covered. Yeah.
I think we're missing, I think this was probably double-sided. I have page 1 of 4 and 3 of 4, but not 2 and 4.
Gosh. That is not good. And of course, it's
The
the one
bottom
for
line
next
is
year.
missing.
Yes. Oh, the bottom line is missing. All right, well, we could call, I feel like the bottom line, I may be able to look that up on my computer. I'm not sure how that happened. Michelle, do you happen to have your copy, and does it have all 4 sides? Well, then would you come up and just speak to that? So somehow, I will say.
So we're looking at next year's budget?
Yeah.
The 1920 budget?
And what line are you looking for? Are you looking?
Well,
Do you
all
have
the lines
numbers
on
the
page
back?
2 and 4. What?
Oh, you don't have anything at
No,
all?
I think it was double-sided, but it only printed the first of both pages. So I don't have pages 2 and 4.
I potentially could make copies, couldn't I? Okay, so what's in here is very, very similar to what's in the current year, but not a lot of budget numbers. So we have some, on page 2, we'll have the system administrator, $46,400, $1,100 in purchase services, $4,000 in leadership academy, $3,000 in regional fairs, $5,000 in legal fees, $3,000 in audit fees, and $5,000 in insurance. That's all that's on 2 and 3. So it's not a whole lot that's there, which is why there's 20 on the back page, on page 4. You'll find $25,000. Or you don't have 4. You don't have 2 and 4. Okay. There's $25,000 that's unallocated.
Okay, so they carried over 42 from this year.
Correct.
And 25 of that stays
unallocated.
Okay. And then I can see, obviously, the assumption on the service allocation is $1,000 for each of the 11 members.
Yes.
And I can see it's $100 for the food purchasing.
Yes.
And then I do see some leadership fees. Do they have any other assumptions on income?
They do not.
So there's no assumption for money that they bring in for the actual
Correct.
professional development they're going to provide.
Correct.
But
Nor
they
are
did
there the
include
expenses
some.
either. They don't really have the expenses for them either.
Okay. So even though it says substitute diversity hiring $3,000 for the supplies, et cetera,
that's still not your share of what you might have to pay to participate in it.
Right. So there still could be more income from the people who use it.
That's correct.
One of the things they're looking at is CDS. There's been a lot of talk about the schools taking over the services for like the 3-year-olds. And so they've just recently decided to kind of look at that and have a discussion about that. And so I think that there's going to be something added to the budget around $11,000 for that. But this is his kind of latest upgrade.
But this is basically the overhead to run.
Yes.
The
what this is, what's showing
regional
you is
service
just the,
center,
the
right?
overhead.
So any additional expenses would also come along with additional income, presumably for the events that they're holding.
Exactly.
Pender Macon, who's our new Commissioner of Education, spoke to us at our conference last week and said that her plan is to put continued funding in the budget that is presented. And so that was good to hear, because that was a big unknown
funding
since we last talked about it, because they had just committed to funding it for 2 years.
Funding both direct state funding to the regional service center and the subsidy to the districts? Both pieces?
Well, she didn't get into specifics.
Okay.
I mean, I think she's only been on the job a week and a half, but.
She doesn't have it all figured out.
Right, and so I think our part of the funding is around 50,000 for this coming year. Yes.
Income.
Income.
Maddie.
So my question about nutrition was, I mean, I think what you just said, we talked about that at our last meeting, but what I wanted to clarify was, because we were supposed to talk about this, the snow day, so the people participating in the food co-op were set to meet in January, so I'm wondering, has that meeting already happened? And did Aaron attend it?
Aaron did not attend that based upon, where we were. So Mick's latest comment to me is, I think it would take some, jumping through hoops to get in there right now. But because he's been working I think Brunswick has been working through that. But I don't think it's impossible. But it wouldn't matter because as long as we joined even next year, it would count.
Right, because it can be retroactive.
Exactly.
But I just wanted to have that for our consideration. Like, would we benefit? We wouldn't benefit. We are in a co-op, I understand, so we have some
Yes.
savings there already, but we wouldn't necessarily benefit from participating in this one this year.
Potentially.
But I understand.
Well, it would
could
be for
count.
next year. Even for this year, it would be for next year. Does that make sense?
Right, but she's saying, so is it possible for us to still be involved in that co-op for 1920?
Possibly.
So, did they give any sense of amounts that they would like to continue to contribute?
No, this was, I don't know, she must have said maybe, it was a question and it was really broad because, I think she's new right now. So, no, there were no amounts given. It is critical, I think that we vote on this tonight because Jennifer Pooler from the state has been, because this will be, they're calculating subsidy right now. And so this is something that they, if you remember, they really need to know by like February 1st.
Right. Maddie?
So when we asked you if you have strong feeling one way or the other, you said you could go either way. Have you changed in one direction or the other since that time?
I feel like collaboration is always a benefit, right? And I think they've been wonderfully inclusive. They let us send some people to one of the PD workshops because they had slots available. So they're still reaching out to us and still, including us when they can. I guess I feel like it would, mostly with what I heard from Pender, I think that the risks are so low that I guess I would recommend that we kind of join the group, because I just think not only are there financial incentives to doing that, I just think the risk is so low that we're undertaking, and it's what we are missing by not being in it is being in on the planning, right? So Cynthia could be planning when they're doing the PD so that our voices are heard.
So, what did Pender say that makes you think that the risk is so low? I mean, anything that comes out of DOE, presumably if it's an additional amount, needs to go through appropriations too. So, there isn't really any guarantee just because she's saying that she would like to fund that there will be any actual funding for it?
Thanks for that clarifying question. I think, to me, it's not what she said that makes the risk so low. You heard from Mary Jane, you've heard from Mick, there's a clause in there that we can go dormant at any time. So when I say the risks are low, I just don't see that there's a huge financial risk in this. What was reassuring to me about Pender is just that there's a commitment that they see the benefit of the regional centers and they want to promote that by backing it up financially. So that's does that help?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to be on board with this, and I just have this niggling little thing that it keeps gnawing at me, and I understand it appears. I talked about this with my husband today. He's like, the risks seem low, and they do seem low, but it's the risks that are difficult to anticipate. And I keep thinking about how this GC is being run by one guy with his half-time stipend to do it, and then a board of superintendents and the staff that come with those superintendents. And my concern is the risk of the loss of focus on our region in order to accomplish the goals of the GC. And I just wonder if that is worth the $50,000 that we're getting. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
So to me, what's great about this, even when we were doing the brainstorming and I was attending the meetings, I don't feel like it's pulling away resources from our district, all right? So one of the things that they were talking about that was brainstorming was like for the English language learners. And if that doesn't align with our goals or a need in our district, you're just not in on the planning on that. So it's basically one, we were meeting like maybe once a month. Much like we attended the meeting last night with Brunswick. And there were times when I was chatting with people where it might not pertain to our district, it might not be the issue. And yes, we gave up 2 hours last night, but I think for what we gained in that 2 hours, it was worth it. And I guess that's how I feel about going to a meeting once a month and being in on the ground floor and having the best thinking of 11 superintendents.
So a follow-up. Oh, sorry. No, you should go. I've been going plenty.
I kind of feel the exact opposite of Maddie, which is I look at we're gonna throw $1,000 into something. I can't even think of anything that we've even talked about ever on the school board that's less than $1,000. I mean, it's the lowest number we've ever talked about, like putting forward, and we're getting $50,000. I mean, is that like a ridiculous? I mean, is that wrong? I mean, I just look at it like that. We're paying $1,000 to get $50,000.
Well, that's correct. But you also remember if we join the food co-op, there's like 600 there.
No, it's 100.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100. Thank you for the group.
Yeah.
But I think what I heard Maddie saying is just the human resources more than the financial.
That's my example.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
And I think, I also think that it might be the opposite in that having the access to 11 different superintendents and their resources might take some things off of Becky's plate where her and Cynthia would have had to do things all on their own, and now they've shared that task with others that could fill in some of that gap. Valerie?
So my question is, and it's basically following up on Maddie's, we are supposed or required to participate in 2 or 3? Two. So one of the ones that we decided we most definitely would participate in is professional development. Mm-hmm. So say that we are in the planning stage and there are 11 districts and everybody has a different need, maybe not, but if they do, and they decide to take the Alliance decides to take the PD in one direction that doesn't suit our needs, and we decide not to participate, then are we still eligible for this subsidy from the state because we're not participating?
So the minimum participation, could we send Cynthia and call it good?
Right. So it's very minimum. You have to participate in 2 things. But for example, we've already participated, in the PD. And I think and that's why we all started small. When we brainstormed probably 10 or 11 areas, but these were the areas that we felt like we could all benefit from. So I think the PD, like the Leadership Academy, is focused on, supporting our leaders. I don't think they're going to get into something that would not pertain to us at all. Like it could be the substitute fares, right? I mean, we're always going to have a need for that. The food co-op, I mean, there's always a need for that.
So there will always be two areas that we don't have to basically compromise our needs to be able to get the subsidy. Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Now, my follow-up question, comment to Jen's, is on the financial end. Right now, yes, we pay 1,000 and get 50 back because there is state subsidy on the table. My question is, what happens when there isn't any state subsidy? If that is what happens, then we'll be on the hook for a lot more than 1,000. And I can't just, by looking at these budgets, try to assess how much that may be, that we may have to basically contribute to the alliance in the absence of the subsidies.
Right, but I mean, that could be something that we would look at with every budget cycle, right? And if it was like, we don't think this is cost effective, then we would go dormant, which the interlocal agreement allows.
So it says a member that discontinues, nothing in the agreement requires a member to purchase all of the functions, programs, or services available. The member may discontinue any purchased functions, programs, or service at the end of the fiscal year upon 90-day notice, and therefore shall no longer be obligated to pay for that function, program, or service. A member that discontinues purchasing all functions, programs, or services from the GC shall no longer be required to continue paying the annual membership fee. And it basically says if you do give up that and you're not doing the two functions, you may lose your eligibility for the subsidy.
So it says right there that you're not required to pay any fees if you choose to go dormant.
Yep.
Okay.
That's what it says. So, okay, so we've talked about this round and round several times, and we still have lots of things on the agenda. So, I would take a motion for consideration and approval to enter into the interlocal agreement for the Greater Sebago Education Alliance Regional Service Center. Kate, second. Jen, any further discussion, question? Maddie?
I'm hearing from like three of us. If anyone else on the board has strong feelings one way or the other, I'd appreciate hearing from them.
Maura?
Personally, I think that we should do it because I see the real benefit to it, to collaborating with other schools. I think that's a real positive, so I'm in favor of it.
Lindsay?
I'm struggling with this because on paper, I don't see a lot of risks, but I have a leeriness that maybe was handed down by previous attempts of the state to incentivize things and dangle money in front of districts to encourage a certain action that the intention's in the right place, but it seemed overly controlling and heavy-handed. And that, yeah, so, and it's a legal agreement. It requires lawyers to get in and lawyers to get out, and that's expensive. And I did get the impression that this was an agenda that was pushed by people who are no longer in office. Was that correct? I'm not totally tapped into the whole history of the movement, but I am concerned that the money doesn't show up within 36 months time, that we are that seems to be like the whole point of, not the whole point, I mean the whole point is collaboration and but it's the dangling money thing to incentivize a large scale movement that, conceptually, theoretically, I think I agree with, but realistically I struggle with, because every district, while we have tons of similarities, our specific annual initiatives for moving the needle are unique and require focus. And so, what Maddie said resonated with me about, or one of the previous speakers, sorry, resonated with me, in that, you know, watering down focus is too strong of a word. I mean, going to some meetings for the hope of some general betterment is not a terrible thing, but we have a lot to focus on that is specific to our district, and I just, I'm personally struggling with the decision. But I think I'm leaning towards not supporting it because I have these hard to describe wariness about the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely come to this table with some baggage, if you will, around joining together, right? I mean, it's created some angst in the past. So I can certainly understand your wariness.
I don't have baggage about joining together. I'm actually quite a join together kind of person. It's the dangling money, incentivizing it,
right.
That I struggle with.
So interesting, if there were no money involved and it was just a co-op of trying to get together and collaborate more without the potential for money, would you be more in favor?
If there wasn't a legal binding agreement that was 12 pages
right.
long and required, you know, a lawyer to understand it. I mean, that's.
I think we enter into a lot of legal agreements that we as a board may or may not know about. You know, the existing co-ops we're members of. I don't know. I don't know what those entail, but. Kate.
I'm less concerned about the loss of state subsidy because if we're losing the state subsidy, so is everybody else in the regional unit. So
it would dissolve.
Yes.
Or I would not say that it would, I guess I want to just, a point of clarification, the Sebago Alliance was already in existence, and then when the money was kind of dangled out there, they joined together and then extended that invitation to more districts like RSU 5. So I really believe that if the money's not there, we will continue to meet and collaborate and share like PD and the food co-op. So I don't believe we will dissolve.
But they
if the
could
money
scale back the
disappears.
operations such
Right,
that
right,
it's
right.
sustainable.
Exactly.
There would be
exactly.
a lot
Right.
more
Yes.
other districts in the same position as us, and they're the voting body.
Right. Valerie?
I mean, if the state weren't promising this subsidy, or at least basically, I don't know if it's a promise or not, but they are saying that we're going to get it this year, and that is a promise. I probably wouldn't vote for it. I mean, if I vote for it, it's just because of the money. I'm not sure the money is important enough, if it's enough money, only because we do have access to these services as a guest member, and we've been doing that this year, and it's worked great. So we can pick and choose what we want, and we don't have to be distracted, like other previous speakers said, with the direction that the whole alliance is going in. And there are quite a few members in the alliance, so there are a lot of competing interests. So I'm not convinced that every time there's a service offered, it will be what we would have chosen for our district. So I don't want to appear to just be flippant about the money, and that's the only reason why I would even consider voting for it. But I think we do collaborate very well with other districts already without being a members of this alliance, and we would have access to their services because obviously they won't turn people away who are willing to pay a fee in the future, and they haven't this year, so it's a tough one.
So we would have to, at the annual budget meeting where everybody votes article by article through the budget, we would have to ask them to vote for this.
We do.
I vaguely remembered that, but then as I was reading the
So-
board documents, it said you did.
So
No.
that
Oh,
would
that
have
was the
been,
first year
right,
of its
yeah.
existence.
So-
All right, I was like, okay, I couldn't
Yeah.
remember. Yes,
So
that-
what-
right.
So once.
that went away.
Right, so once the regional centers were established, if another district now wants to join and the regional center is allowing them to join, you don't need a vote.
Right.
Other than the board vote.
So we vote as a board, and then their board votes to accept us. And then, I mean, the only thing that I think, is, I mean, there's an agreement that has to be signed between us and them, and, you know, what might change my opinion of a yes vote would be if they came back and did start instituting, you know, limitations or, you know, when Mick was here, he said, at this point, he wouldn't expect that. They're so new. There's not a lot of, you know, there's not a lot already invested in, and it, you know, we're pretty early in the process. But, you know, if that agreement that came back said, okay, well, you have to pay more than the other people, or, you know, whatever the case may be, that agreement, I think, you know, that would change my opinion of entering into the interlocal agreement if it wasn't what's presented here. Because there is a separate agreement that needs to be made between RSU number 5 and GC.
So, Michelle, am I hearing you say that if the 11 members decide, the majority of the 11 members decide to change the terms of the legal agreement that we will be entering on, then...
Right, so it says that...
Basically, everything could change.
Right. Well, what does it say? So any new wishing to become a member may petition the board. The board of directors may condition membership by imposing additional obligations or limit to the rights and benefits that the petitioner may receive, including without limitation access to the fund balances, which is understandable, the fund balance piece. The petitioner and the board shall negotiate and execute a separate agreement in which the petitioner agrees to be bound by the terms of this agreement. So basically what I'm saying is if what they put forward is what's in here, then I'm okay with that. If what they put forward was materially different than this, I think then, you know, if this were to pass tonight, that would trigger a rediscussion on our part whether we wanted to enter into a contract. That's
I think my greatest hesitation is that in all the discussions of, you know, the whole point is how do we improve student achievement? And I look at how carefully and strategically planned our professional learning days are, and they're so specific to like what we need to be doing that I'm having a hard time imagining that we're going to be able to find what we actually need to be getting.
Yeah, no, because I think, you know, one of the things that Mick had said was, you know, they've been able to bring in some speakers that any individual district probably couldn't do on their own, and we probably wouldn't even try to do on our own. But when you can do it as a group and get more people there, and, you know, I don't think it would necessarily replace any of our full PD days because those are very specific and designed by us, but it could provide opportunities for specific staff to attend, you know, trainings or a speaker or something like that. You know, I don't think this replaces our PD. I think it enhances our PD and what we're able to offer our folks. And, you know, I don't see it. I wouldn't imagine that all of our staff would be going to GCPD, right? I think it would be a specific portion based on, what's that? We might even be able to host it.
Correct. And I would say, like the Leadership Academy, that really is to support principals and coaches, and that kind of PD is very, you know, specific, that could be helpful to our leaders.
And hard to do on your own.
And hard to do on our own. Where definitely there might be PD that's specific to big ideas and nobody else is doing it, but that's not the kind of PD they're going to probably bring in. I think the other one that we participated in was just support for our coaches. And that, that kind of PD, how to provide feedback, that's one of our strategic goals too, effectively. That's general. It doesn't matter what program you're implementing when you're learning how to give more effective feedback.
Maddie.
I do think I'm leaning toward saying yes for the money. And because some of the questions I've had, they're echoes of questions I've had before, and I feel like those have been addressed by Mick presenting at our last meeting, and the assurances that we could still do our own professional development. My lingering hesitation, which I guess I'm feeling more willing to take a leap of faith, but my hesitation has only been around our ability as a district to be nimble, responsive, and to ensure that we're not adding a layer of bureaucracy that makes it difficult to implement our mission. And if you feel that this would not hinder us in those efforts, then I'm inclined to approve it.
Jen.
I agree, Maddie, and I think that this is one of those times when we ask Dr. Foley what her opinion is, and she gives her opinion, and I think that, that's how I feel about it. Nothing in her opinion talked about the money, it talked about collaboration, and so I'm going to vote for it.
Sally?
So I just want to point out page 9, answer to my prior question about changing the agreement. It says 21 amendment. This agreement may be amended by 2/3 affirmative vote of the full membership of the board of directors. So the way I read the agreement now, with you can go dormant, you can be a guest, you can do this, you can do that. It seems like there's a law that would protect us, but if the full membership, 2/3 of it, can change everything, then it gives me a little pause, honestly. Yeah, because there are a lot of members and we're just one vote. And honestly, I like the way we're doing things now. We're doing good work. And we do have access to collaboration with them by being guests. So again, I'm just going to say it one last time, but it's the $50,000 really the carrot here, because we can benefit from everything they're doing by paying fees as needed when we choose to send our people to PD for coaching or professional development for administrators or whatever it is that they're offering. That's great that we can do it, that we cannot do on our own. We're not basically saying we won't be able to participate if we vote no to join. Mick did say, when you have participated this year, we're going to try to make a lot of great things happen for everyone, and for the members who are not voting members, they can still come and participate, and they'll just have to pay extra.
Right. Okay. Are we ready to vote? So we have a motion on the floor and a second. No more questions. I think everybody's good on that. So all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, thank you. It passes. All right. So I'm going to apologize to our guests from Region 10. We were kind enough to put you, you are new business, but.
Kind enough to put us at the end, is that what you said?
Yeah.
But I don't think we're quite at the end, though. So.
That's true. Good point. That was wishful thinking on my part. All right, so Region 10 Technical High School, Nancy Weed, the Superintendent Director, and I think she's brought some other folks with her this evening to present to us.
And I'm thinking of board meetings that I've sat there for 2 hours and wondering how some of you are doing that. So if you need to get up and stretch or do whatever you need to do, that's fine. Thank you so much for inviting us. I am, as you introduced me, Nancy Weed. I'm the Superintendent Director at Region 10 Technical High School. This is my 3rd year there, and I have to tell you, it's been a delight to come into this area and be part of our plan to become a 4-year comprehensive technical high school. Before I get into that, I would like to introduce the folks that I brought with me, because you really can't do a job such as mine or Dr. Foley's without people that you work with closely that are your colleagues. So I'd like to introduce to you, and I think you all know him because he just walked around. I stole from Freeport John Stivers as my assistant director, student services coordinator, grant writer. Let's see, there's a whole list of things that go after that. And it's been great fun to have him there. Kids come in and they're like, "Oh, Mr. Stivers," and they're so excited to see him there. So are you standing there behind me, John? You are. Okay, he knows his place. Okay. In any case, he'll be right up here in a minute. I also brought with me a gentleman who was my interim assistant director last year, and we stole him from Brunswick. I brought with me John Page, who was a curriculum coordinator at Brunswick, also a longtime principal in the Brunswick school system, and he served as my interim assistant director last year, which was great because he brought with him his strengths and his eye and how to look at technical education. And that's what's very exciting. We're doing a lot of looking at how we do business at our school, what's going on, how can we bring up the standards, how can we make it more open to students from all of our sending school districts. Before I get into what we're looking at, projecting our future, I do want to add, if this is okay, the question was asked earlier about college credits for Freeport High School students at Freeport High School, and I consider Region 10 a part of Freeport High School because we serve your students. And so just so people know this, you can get 3 college credits from Southern Maine Community College through our early childhood education program. You can get 5 college credits through Southern Maine Community College through our EMT program. You can get 3 college credits from Northern Maine Community College through our auto collision program. We have a new program, pre-engineering, and it's part of Project Lead the Way is our curriculum, and you can get 3 college credits through RIT and other colleges through that program. And new next year, we have a tech math that's going to be offered with our certified math teacher that I stole from Brunswick. Tech Math 100, I don't know the numbers for it exactly, but through Southern Maine Community College, also 3 college credits. So when people talk about are there college credits available, they are. We're just off-site, but we are available. You have in front of you a proposal for a 4-year comprehensive high school. We have done this presentation in a number of different areas. We started at the State Department in September, where we introduced them to the concept of what we'd like to do. And we didn't look at obstacles, I will tell you that. We looked at the concept. And we had about 13 different members of the Maine Department of Education sitting there and overwhelmingly said, this is a great idea, let's go for it. Logistically, I know you'll have a lot of questions, and I hope that you raise those questions. We may not be able to answer those questions at this time because we don't have those answers. When it comes to some of the funding questions, we don't have all those answers. In fact, the state doesn't have those answers, even in how they're going to fund CTEs next year. We have a new funding formula, the EPS funding formula, that's been applied to the CTEs, and it has an impact on us. And when we have questions, for instance, how are you going to fund equipment, they don't have answers yet. So we're all in limbo. And we're hoping for the best. We've been assured that we'll get the best, but we'll see. So we've gone to the state, we've gone to the Maine State Chamber of Commerce, we've gone to Brunswick School Department, we've gone to the Topsom Selectmen. We're out there on the road because we want your feedback. We truly do. Why a 4-year school? There are many obstacles when you look at the paper that we passed out, and I don't need to read that to you. There are many obstacles right now for students in coming to our school, but that's not the primary reason for a 4-year comprehensive technical high school. The primary reason is we believe very strongly that students need a stronger and better education in technical education in order to be successful for their futures. Not only for their futures, but for the future of our communities, for the future of our state, and yes, indeed, when we look across the country and the world, they need to have more skills than they're getting now. It's not to say that a liberal arts type education that so often we get in our high schools is a bad thing. It's not that at all. But we know that that applied learning is really important. Our program is designed for students who want to go directly to work or a program who want to go off and go on to college. That's the way it's designed now. We intend to keep it that way so that it's well balanced. We intend to serve all the students in our region that would like to come to our school, just like we do now. It's part of the law. But we do intend to have it 4 years, and it's an exciting challenge. It's new for the state of Maine. It's not new for our southern states, such as Massachusetts and Connecticut. Their schools went from lower enrollment to, the school that I grew up next to in Massachusetts went from you now apply, there's 900 people apply for 300 slots. I hope ours never gets that competitive because I think that it needs to be a well-balanced program. But they went from accepting leftovers pretty much from their traditional way of funding to being premier technical schools serving the needs of their businesses and communities. It builds industry in our state. One of the reasons we're looking at the Landing as a potential site is that it's part of their target to redevelop the former Navy base. So we're part of their pipeline. They have Southern Maine Community College, University of Maine at Augusta, and we intend to be part of that. That is our goal, that is our vision. We're all on board, and when we look at new hires, we talk about that. It's very exciting. I think in a nutshell, that's where we're at, and I know there'll be time for questions, but I know, Becky, you said, okay, about 10 minutes, Nancy, and I want to make sure John, where are you? John provides the rest of the perspective as a former employee at the State Department. He's certainly looked into the labor market and all of that has to offer, so I'd welcome it if you'd join me at the podium.
It won't surprise you that envisioning a new school is a tremendously exciting thing under any circumstances. Yeah, we have many challenges. We're probably going at about half of our capacity right now, and I have to wonder why. And so let me share an anecdote with you. Just this week, in fact Tuesday, our Freeport, Durham, and some kids from Harpswell Coastal Academy, they all 8th graders came and visited our school. It was a hoot and a holler. It was so much fun to see the kids doing various programs. Part of the one feature that we do is we do surveys. So during lunch, kids take surveys about programs that they might be interested that we have, and then programs that we don't have that they might be interested. And we also ask them, how likely are you to want to come here? And they can choose, they can choose yes, no, or maybe. So I just compiled, I would say 80% of the surveys in, and interestingly, right now about 60 of the kids affirmatively said they wanted to come. Another 55 said maybe, and about 20 said no. Fair enough. We end up with about 40 this year. We have, I think, 41 kids from this particular community. Someone is saying no, right? Now, that's not science. Those surveys aren't scientifically valid. You know, I'm not saying that exactly 60 kids would end up coming here anyway, just on the strength of the yes answers. But something, right, is getting in the way from a majority of those kids when they come there and they're excited about thinking about their future, seeing themselves within those programs. Between that 8th grade and the time they're, let's say, juniors, something's happening. And so what I want to do is just really briefly tie this into looking at the state, the health of the state of Maine, which we all know is in a perilous spot in the sense that old folks like me, who perhaps are applying their trade as carpenters, as plumbers, as electricians, even engineers, we're graying out. And that is not even to talk about growth industries, right? Certain industries in the state the job demand is growing. That's one thing, but it's the replacement that very few of us are talking about, just to replace the workforce we have right now. And what are those jobs? They're jobs that are paying $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year. They're jobs where you're working with your mind and your hands. And there's opportunity. There's just opportunity we're leaving on the table, I feel. And so, this school won't solve that, but it's a step and a possible model for the rest of the state. But it's certainly a step for kids locally. We have to ask ourselves: are there 250, 350 kids between Portland and Augusta that would like a full-time technical program? Not that we'd only do that, because as Hank Ogilvy has often reminded us, education has many purposes. It feeds the soul. It's not just about work. But I'd be shocked if there weren't 350 kids in the state that saying, yeah, you know, this is really exciting. This is a valid learning modality. You know, I can go to college and I can learn a trade, and I can graduate from high school, as many of our kids do now, with an actual professional credential. So this is a tremendous opportunity, and right now we're at about half speed. And again, I think there are reasons for that. So moving toward this four-year school is one way, not the only way, but it is one way to sort of accomplish this and improve that on behalf of kids, on behalf of our state, and on behalf even of just aspirations.
John, so tall. We know we're not going to get there tomorrow, even though people say, well, when's this going to happen? Students are like, when's this going to happen? It's going to take time for us to get to that point. We are actively out there the next few weeks recruiting, talking to students, getting in the schools. We're going to basketball games at Mount Ararat, you know, to just get out there, get our name out there. There are a lot of misconceptions about technology and tech schools, or VOC. Lots of misconceptions out there, and we want just to educate and get more information out. But we also know that in the meantime, we have a lot of work to do, and one of my reasons for hiring John Page to come back as a curriculum consultant was to take his expertise and start to really look at how can we help students at this point? How can we pull together and make sure that they're getting the credits that they should get, not just elective credits, because, for instance, Freeport has, 24 credits, and out of that, there are very few electives in there. They're mostly requirements. That has a significant impact on students who want to attend the vocational school or the technical school, however you want to refer to it. So we've asked John to talk a little bit about what he's doing, because this is very important to all of us, because those obstacles are there. It's very hard for a freshman. An 8th grader comes in really excited, then they can't take a class until later because there's so many requirements. We're doing math in a lot of different program areas. We're doing science in a lot of program areas. If you go to Freeport and you only get a half a credit for, say, math in a auto tech course, and you get 1 credit from Brunswick and you get no credits from Mount Ararat, it's not fair. That should be consistent. So John has been working with school counselors, school principals, superintendents, curriculum coordinators. We've had him out there just talking to everybody and gathering on all that information. So I'm going to ask John Page to also join me and share with you what he's done for work, because it all ties together for what we're trying to do right now to make sure that we give kids that opportunity to come to our school. Okay. John, you want me to pass those out for you?
Oh, sure, please.
You want to keep one?
Yeah, that's not a...
All right. I'll do it the easy way. I'll just start it at one end.
Thanks for having me here. It was fascinating listening to your earlier discussions, because somebody mentioned earlier on alternative pathways, and of course Region 10 is an alternative pathway. And you mentioned the work that you did on proficiency, and I've certainly been busy with all of that and level 4s and all the different things you're talking about. And then there was a worry about joining some kind of regional cooperative. Well, Region 10's a regional cooperative, and so if you're worried about one, here's another one, type of thing. And what I found as I talk with various people in your district and the other districts, and with students and so forth, is that somehow in the mix of all this restructuring and work we've been doing over the last 20, 30 years. I was around at the beginning of Region 10, so we've kind of moved forward, and each of the 3 sending districts have moved forward in slightly different directions, as you can see from the charts. And I don't know to what degree Region 10 was involved in all of this. I wasn't there for all of that, but I don't think, even though it was a regional thing and you have a regional school board, I think a lot of the stuff must have passed them by or something, because what you find is that perhaps in a day when there were a lot more opportunities for kids to just take elective courses, and a kid that had a passion for carpentry or a passion for auto mechanics or whatever could on just the worth of X number of options to take an elective could probably get their needs met. But increasingly today, what I was hearing from your own counselors, for example, is kids, it's quite a commitment to go to Region 10 for a half a day. And if they can't get some kind of credit, a lot of them can't go. Right? And that's the truth. And that's the truth at Mount Ararat, and that's the truth at Brunswick. Brunswick offers more options for electives than the other two schools. And so what you're finding is not being able to get any kind of credit, or not having the districts and everybody, the adults in the world, making decisions around what might be worth credit, equivalent credit, an alternative pathway. We're boxing people out. So on one hand, the rhetoric is we want kids to have alternative pathways, and yet my opinion is that inadvertently we've made it impossible for a lot of kids to take an alternative pathway. And so that's what I've learned in the first, I started on this work, specifically the curriculum work, middle of October, November, I think it was. And so I've talked with a lot of people, and that's the conclusion I've come to. I think we need to do something about it. So that's really what I want to talk about. As you look at this chart, you can see that there are certainly agreements that have been made over the years for some things to get credit. But probably we need to try and find a way to be more consistent as a region, whether that's done by each individual local school board or whether it's done through the Region 10 school board is something we need to talk about. Obviously, you're very proud, and rightfully so, of the work you've done here with your curriculum and with your proficiency work. And it's going to be a hard talk to talk about, well, if you take nursing or EMT, shouldn't that be worth a health credit? It's an alternative health credit, but it's a health credit. Or do they have to take the health course here? Or do they have to take a supplement to taking nursing? So there may be certain topics in the health curriculum that need to be added. So that we need to, and that's where a curriculum person comes in, is we have to talk backwards and forwards and look at the requirements of the state and try and figure out whether we could award a credit for health, for example, or a full credit for math. And we'd have to show you, when we've got some of the work already done, to show you where in auto mechanics or something else it's worth a credit. But it's not, you get into a discussion with like a department chair at one of the schools, you know, they're used to the box of geometry or algebra 2 or whatever, all right? Well, mathematics at Region 10 is a more technical type of math, so it's math, it's a different category. You know, so I don't want to go on with that, but that's the problem that I'm faced with, is first of all, to convince you, I have to look at your curriculum, you being Freeport, but to convince Brunswick, I've got to look at their curriculum and convince them to that. In Region 10, Mount Ararat, everybody's got a different slant on it, you follow what I mean? And so I'm willing to do the work, but we need to have conversations about exactly what work is it we want to do. You can see where the attraction of, you know, a comprehensive regional school is there, because that takes all that away. It's just our own independent school, you know? And that's another way to go. But so that's what I'm working on. I've started work with the health folks to try and come up with a curriculum that I think we already have a curriculum, don't get me wrong, but to try it, put it in a format which would be more familiar to the sending schools, and then would be, you know, wanting to have discussions about whether or not we should award credit for that, and whether the school boards would be willing to award a credit for that type of things. questions on that. You see, I just wanted to make sure y'all knew what the problem was, and it's quite complicated. And we can't do it exactly the way you do it. We have to do it our way. You know, I mean, but we have to meet some requirements, obviously, of the state. Yeah.
So this is very eye-opening in terms of, as a school board member, I didn't realize that going to Voc basically was electives. Like you're using your electives to go there. I think that's terrible. I can't believe that that's what we do. And like I said, it's just news to me today. Yeah. I know some kids that go there, but that, you know, obviously, like you said, the comprehensive school, which I think is a fantastic idea, would take care of that. And yeah, that's a big deal.
The way I would look at electives, just so you know, is until I knew better after being there last year as the interim, was, you know, I would say, well, I know a student is very passionate about welding. He wants to work in the ironworks and so forth and so on. And so I'm figuring he's taking that, he's getting credit, he's getting taking a national exam, he's getting nationally certified, all that kind of stuff. Makes sense. And then there's another kid, you know, who is probably going to go to Bowdoin or something, but he kind of like to learn how to fix his car. That could be an elective. Yeah, that kid should be able to go too. And he's not maybe going to go out and work in the garage, but he's interested. He's got an elective. He doesn't want to take another math class. He wants to learn how to fix his car. So that's the way I would think of electives being used. So I wouldn't want to say a kid couldn't come if they just were interested. Yeah. Other questions?
Maddie.
So are you suggesting that you would accept two kinds of students? Students who are full-time at Region 10 and students who just came for some electives and still were?
Well, I mean, we haven't ironed that out, but I mean, if you ask my personal opinion, you know, it's the superintendent's call on that, but my personal opinion is, you know.
It's actually, it's not even my call, it's the state's call. It's a full-time program or it's not a program. So that's the hard thing. The only class that we can do half year is our 9th grade course that we're putting in next year, Foundations of Technology. Otherwise, it's 350 hours for the program. They have to do that. And that's the hardest thing, is you pull them out of a school, they love being in their school, they love being involved with all these things, and you pull them out, and it's hard to be a part-time student, whatever aspirations you have, it's very hard to be part-time. But what I hear John also saying is, you know, we have seniors come in from, say, Brunswick or whatever, they can fit it in their schedule, and they come in, they'll do EMT all afternoon because they want to be a doctor someday. They do CNA because they want to be a nurse someday, or they want to be a doctor someday. Well, they'll do auto tech because they want to learn about cars because, hey, they're going to have to fix cars, and maybe that's their job going through college.
So that would effectively end. The creation of the school means they have to make a choice to be a full-time student, either at Region 10 or?
I think that's a good question. That is really a question that we haven't come to a final conversation. How do we accommodate students who would be able to do that? What do we do for them? And that has come up, and that's one of the things that we said we don't have all the answers, but that's certainly been up there. How do we do that? How do we allow those kids to come in that are very happy at Freeport High School, for instance, to come do half of their, part of their senior year there or junior year, whatever that is? That certainly has come up.
Valley. Okay, thank you. So if the comprehensive high school gets off the ground, then will the boards of the sending districts decide to participate and send students or not, or how would that work?
That's that legislative piece. You're still, right now, it's part of the region. Boards don't make the decision for attendance at the school. We make the decision at our school based on the information received from the sending schools. In the Massachusetts schools, for instance, it's again made at the vocational school level or the technical school level, but they're part of a region, just like they are now. So the board doesn't make that decision. Now, as far as slots go, and eventually that cooperative agreement, all of that would have to be addressed if it came down to like, oh my gosh, it's so popular.
Okay, so you would in effect be pulling students from the whole region, not just from the 3 sending districts.
Right now, it's just the 3 sending districts, but the conversation is how far, and if students, for instance, from Bath want to come down to our school, or we have students come over from Lisbon now, and we work individually with those vocational schools. But again, it's a bigger picture that we're looking at, to allow people to have that 4-year program, and that's what, John was talking or referencing, or John Stivers. So I wish I could say, oh yeah, we have a definitive answer, but we don't. And what's really good is the questions you raise are the concerns we write down and talk about. How are we going to address that?
Okay. Timing is a huge issue, because if anything like this were to happen, then boards of sending districts would have to be able to have far advance notice to adjust, because downstaffing, if you have a lot of students leave your school, is very challenging. So we wouldn't want to be faced in a position where all of a sudden we lose a great number of students and we're staffed for the full enrollment that we may not have.
Right, and it's a process, and we're just at the very beginning stages, listening, looking for feedback, listening to questions. Do people support the concept? What's the impact? Who's going to pay for it? How's it going to work? We're looking at, and we don't have specifics exactly at this point. We've spoken to the attorney that works for Department of Education, and we believe we're going to be looking at a magnet school funding formula to address it, because we don't want to take out of the general purpose aid for schools. That's really, it's going to be different. So that's our goal, but we met with them in September. We had a lot of political changes up there. They're all tied up with the election, so we haven't had a chance to revisit that. One thing you might want, and I did pull this because the question was also about enrollment, and I thought it might be useful for you to have the enrollment here and what's happened in the last 5 years and what the other schools have. And then I had our secretary pull out the last 10 years for Freeport. I thought that might be also useful. Yeah, you want to do that? John didn't reference anything. John, you want me to talk about that? Well, let me just share. John has a lot of work to do. I mean, I like to delegate out a lot of work, but the State Department did workshops called Intersections, where they brought together people. They brought together math people from your traditional high schools and a program, for instance, auto tech. People from across the state, and they had these 2 workshop days or 3 workshop days, whatever it is, and through that they ironed out where the math standards were for auto tech, for instance. So we printed that off, and I'd like to give that to you, because one of the things that I recognize is that oftentimes, I think 15 years ago, this is when this chart came up, about 15 years ago, and a lot of times my tradespeople cannot articulate what math they are actually doing in their programs. They can't tell you this is, geometry and algebra and statistics, but what they know is what they teach. So I hired a math teacher this year, and also he's doing some technology integration. But one of the reasons I hired him is I wanted him to literally go out and talk to our welding instructor and our auto tech person and say, what are you doing for math? But I also wanted him to take these intersection workshops standards that are there and that's been done already and put them together and be that he's the interpreter. So he's going to my instructors, they're going and bringing that information and talking that information over with him, and then Brian, the math person, is talking with John, and they're working at that and saying, let's take a look at this. Because I will tell you this, I absolutely refuse to rubber stamp, yeah, we do math, and just think that everybody at this day and age is going to say, yeah, you're doing math. What are you doing for math? What are the standards? What are you meeting? Where are they? It's really important that we have high standards as well. So we're going to share that with you also. John, where is it? You have that packet. The stuff I gave you.
Oh, I passed that out already, but
you did?
all you had,
No.
the one pager.
Oh. All right. Well, maybe it's, there it is. Now we're going to pass it. But just, these are your references. There's 13 pages in it. All right. I know you don't want to read it. You got a lot to do. What other questions can we answer?
Maddie.
Well, just 2 other, I'm just curious and wondering if you've thought about this, having this, you said it would be the first technical high school like it in the state?
We believe it is, yes.
So could it be a magnet school like the Limestone School, potentially with boarding capacity? Was one thought. And then I'm also wondering if you would consider having capacity for some adult education as well.
Part of adult education is part of what we're supposed to do. We haven't really discussed that at all. But certainly, we know one of the things about adult education for us right now is Bath Ironworks trying to work with us to get, help with the trainings, the new training. So we've talked about workforce development and working collaboratively that way. But we haven't really specified or talked about adult education. And yes, there's another magnet school as well in Searsport that was written for a maritime school. I think there's, 12 or 13 students there, and they live in the area. Just started this year. I think it's gotten really underway, but they've been in process for a couple of years. So I'm not certainly answered about adult ed because I don't really have an answer, but hasn't really been on our radar.
Jen. Oh,
I don't have a question. I have a comment about, this makes me think about back when I was teaching middle school in the early 2000s, and I remember those kids going to Voc. I taught in Brunswick, and I remember those kids going to Voc and coming back very excited. And I don't know how many times I said to other teachers or colleagues, I really wish these kids could start in 9th grade. Because for a lot of kids, I'm on the dropout committee now on the school board, and I'm thinking about that too, because a lot of those kids, one of the things that happens is they don't stay in school, and that's probably a small part of the kids, but I think it's a really valid thing to look at. So I think a 4-year is just I think it's such a great idea, and I think that I don't know how many times also I've said, we're losing this whole skilled group of people. Good luck finding a plumber right now, and good luck paying him less than $60 an hour. And I know you don't have plumbing, but, auto tech, things like that. So I think it's a great idea. I mean, like you said, it's it's in the early stages, but I think it's a great idea.
Thank you. Well, we're really looking at what does Maine need. We all need plumbers, electricians, HV people, whatever. We all need them. We need nurses. Look at the nursing shortage. We need doctors. We need EMTs. We need them. And what I really commend our board, our cooperative board, Kate, who serves there, and John, who serves quietly there as well, is really looking at doing that and saying, we're going to go out and we're going to do this. We're going to support you, and we're going to support your endeavors and your programs, and give me that authority to do that and say, let's move forward with this, because we'd like to bring in more businesses in our state to keep our graduates here, and that's part of what the Brunswick Landing is doing, is trying to bring in people from all over the world. And they have some already, but their question is, do you have a skilled labor force? And so when you talk about, we have a technical school that feeds into our our college level technical programs, or engineering at Orono or USM, wherever that may be, yes, we do. The question was asked, is this the only one in the state? You'll hear a lot of conversation about a comprehensive school, for instance, in Sanford. We have a comprehensive school and comprehensive technical school. Then we're looking at a 4-year comprehensive technical school where things are integrated, courses are integrated, and it makes sense for students. And that's the difference for us, is that technical component. In those schools, they're close and they're in, but they're not 4 years of a program.
Jeremy.
Press that button.
Just curious, in here, where does, because there's shortages in lots and lots of things, but information technology is certainly one of them too. Where do these tracks fit in? Because I don't really see one that's specific to information technology related.
There really isn't one yet. When we get a program, we have to go through a program approval for the state. It takes us about, I want to say 12 months to 15 months to get all that together. We talk about which programs to offer next, and that's one of the ones that we've had on the radar as far as what we have to offer. We put out surveys to students to find out what the needs are, businesses to find out what the needs are. But yes, that's exactly what we need to have in there.
We will share with you, just for your information and consumption, is we'll share with you the results of the survey once they're finished. You might find it just interesting to look, because we talked about computer-based programs, IT, cybersecurity, that kind of thing. And that got, no surprise, that got a lot of student interest. So we'll share the results of that survey.
And I can definitely confirm the excitement of the 8th graders. I had an 8th grader who was there last week, and he was very excited. He actually had greasy hands coming home, and so he was very excited about that.
He was an auto tech with me because I got him too.
Nice.
Yeah.
I went to the main biz, it was called 5 on the Future, and it was business owners, big and small, and people from the state, and HR professionals, and without exception, every one of them stated the shortage of a skilled workforce is a huge problem for Maine. When the paper mills all closed, there was this push from Augusta, oh, well, everybody needs to go to college then, like where people normally would have come out of high school and gone to work where their parents and grandparents had worked and worked their whole career there, where that sort of went to the wind. It was, oh, well, everybody has to go to college. And we have this mental block about tech and Voc, that it's for the kids who can't go to college. Well, that's not true. I mean, it's for the kids who have a different interest. It's for kids that, maybe don't want to spend $75,000 a year to go to Bowdoin, and come out with a liberal arts degree, which is a fantastic degree, and more power to you if you want to do that. But there needs to be those other alternatives, and getting over that mental leap of that distinction between the two. I went to I was at a soccer game, of course, down in Massachusetts at one of their technical schools, and it was one of the most beautiful schools I've ever seen. I mean, they had horse stables, because apparently that was one of their programs. They had a track and field that made ours look kind of shabby. I mean, it was incredible. Seriously, this thing was ridiculous. And it was a technical school, and I was just blown away how they clearly have a different view on what that is. And it, as you mentioned, I mean, it's a privilege to get into one of those schools.
Yes, it is.
And the idea of this 4-year comprehensive school, I think, gets us a big step closer to kids realizing that this is a really viable option for a lot of kids. So I love it.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, it is, and I think about that middle group. I was a high school guidance counselor forever. I started at Cape Elizabeth, went to Ellsworth, and then went to Deer Isle, and different populations. But here's the thing: there's a middle group. I got them all to go to college, by the way, but they go to college, and then what do? And a lot of them don't finish college, or they work at Walgreens or whatever they do afterwards, and they have high student debt. So there's that shift, and we're looking at getting that middle group of students. But how can we break that stereotype that just Voc kids, just whatever, the kids that can't fit in anywhere else, kind of thing. Right. So we're working really hard at that, and that's why we have pre-engineering. Quite honestly, we make a choice if you're going to have another trades, or you're going to put in something else that might get literally someone on the bus. Because for some of those kids, getting on that bus is really difficult because their friends are back home. I was lucky to go in every single school, every single class, except one I wasn't allowed in a school. I was honors biology, because guess what? I was told those kids won't be coming to your school. And I've heard that a lot. I've heard it from staff members. I hear it from counselors. And now, I'm not saying any individuals, but there's that theme that we're working on, education. Being a CNA gives you the clinical hours if you want to become a physician's assistant. So we're doing a lot of work to try to educate our public. It's great to have the publicity out there and be able to share that in the forecaster and what we're trying to do, and it's been wonderful. Because
and also an idea about parents, right? I mean, you have all those kids, I want to go, and they go home and go, I want to go to the tech high school, and the parents are like, no, you're going to college.
Not my kid.
Right.
Right.
Right. So maybe, a tech night for the parents, not just the kids.
Well, and Freeport's been great. We come to the all the meetings. We've been graciously invited in. Everybody's been wonderful to come in, and so it's just getting out there and teaching. So yeah, if you want to feel like, hey, there's a tech night coming up. I heard about a coffee here tonight. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to call Jen and say I'm going to that coffee. Keep us in mind. It's just important for us to get out there. It just truly is. Because there really is a stigma, and it's really sad. We all need plumbers and electricians and nurses and doctors. And if we're on the side of the road and someone's run over us or hurt us, we need EMTs. We need auto techs for these cars that are all all computerized. So.
I think we should also support it as a board. We're in this position where we just renovated, and yet we're at capacity. And I don't see our district getting smaller anytime soon. We're going to keep growing. And so, while I think it's a little bit of a hurdle, you know, if you grow up in this community and you have siblings who go to Freeport High School, you look forward to going to Freeport High School, but you having this 4-year opportunity with teams and everything else, I think is a really it's a positive benefit to the district in many ways, and could help us with our capacity issues as well.
I think it'd be a really cool thing to have the best premier technical school in this, this region. I think it'd be wonderful. It's Region 10 identified by the state, but to house it here would be really exciting, because we have really great schools here with high standards for things, and our school will be no different. It will have the same high standards.
Just, Maddie, to just mention one thing. Would the vision be to have individual sports teams at the school?
Yeah, I can't tell you which ones yet. Haven't figured that out yet. Although I've been told it has to be hockey. There's, but if you've been,
he's like, I'm in.
That's a whole nother discussion. So yeah.
But if you've been to the ones in Massachusetts or Connecticut, it's a tradition. It's a high school. They're premier high schools. They put money in. The state puts money in. I don't know which one you went to.
I don't remember. I go to so many schools for soccer.
And I will tell you, I grew up down the road from Blackstone Valley Tech in Upton. I talk about this all the time. People are like, yeah, she did. I did. I grew up down the road from Blackstone Valley, and hardly anybody went there except the kids. I called them the Radiator Gang when they were in my class. The kids that hung out there, and then they went over their work boots. It's not that way now. It's like getting into Harvard. I'd like to have a balance. I think it should be open to everybody. But that the person who turned that around essentially focused on the technical needs for that area, and educated the other technical schools in Massachusetts as well. He was actually the superintendent of the regular superintendents, which was quite a feat, but educated people that we have high standards and this is what needs to happen. So they have a premier high school, Worcester Tech. They're all very good down in Massachusetts. And what's nice about it, when I come in here, who's a gentleman that's the social studies person that.
No, we're talking about Tim Supply.
Yeah. I'm in there talking about, and he's busy telling about his technical school experience, and he's an electrician, and he's talking to the students, and they're like, wow, that's really cool. And you need those role models. And I go into Brunswick, and here's the science teacher, and she goes, yeah, and I did the plumbing and all this. She's talking about her technical school experience down in New Jersey. They went off to college, they've done really well. So they're all sharing that. And yet, how do you get them to come over on the bus? Is really the challenge that we face, and bring up that. So I know it's been a long night. You have more on your agenda. If you have other questions, I'd be happy to answer them, or we'll come back, Dr. Foley. Or you come to our school. Come look around and tell us what you think. Anytime you want to come in, we'll give you a tour. We have great students. They'll take you on your merry way. And we have an open house coming up, so you're going to come to the open house, I suspect. Yeah, for sure. And but
When's
that's
the open house? Do you have a date?
It's February 13th. Yes, I believe. Oh, yeah, I do. That's right. I believe it's February 13th. I'll double check and I'll send that to Becky, and she can send that out to you. Invitations went home with 8th grade students. And it's for prospective students and their parents. And we talk a lot about parents advocating for what they'd like to have for their children and plotting that through. How do you get a 4-year technical education now? How can you fit that in? And so they're going to be coming back to your schools and saying to your principal, how can we make this happen? So we're working all together, and that's great. The credits is really important, a big part of that, collaboratively getting it all, again, working together. I think that's what's most important. So thank you for your support. Unless there's, I don't know if you take a formal vote, Becky, but I don't know. But thank you for your support. And it was helpful when we went to Brunswick. We had the same support, and it was great. They came with the same message. It's great. Keep it up. We're going to do it. And we'll deal with those obstacles if you lose enrollment right off. We will certainly not say, oh yeah, we're going to take 100 of your students. It's not going to happen overnight, and you're going to get 100 more because you have a great school anyway, right? You will. So thank you very much. Yep.
I think Sally has one last question.
Final closing comment. I wanted to just echo what everyone said about just the great opportunity for the kids who choose that path, and for the state in general, because it needs. One thing that crosses my mind fleetingly, and it wouldn't be a reason to not support it because I support it fully, but I would be sad to see the diversity gone from our school. So that's one of the things that I really value about Freeport, that it has that diversity of interest in the student body, and if they go away full time, then that will be a loss to us and the students who remain here who won't have access to those students. But it's,
well,
you
know,
always have to lose something when you gain something.
So I go back to across the road from Blackstone Valley Tech is Nipmuc Regional High School, where I went to school. And I went in last month or a couple months ago, and I asked that question: how has it been? Kids move around where they feel they best fit. They still have a lot of diversity. So it's not the right fit for every student, and so it's like anything. There is diversity amongst the students that'll come to this new school and also in Freeport. So we want diversity also.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we are going to leave. We're not staying for the rest of your meeting.
You can't just hang in there. You're almost done. Okay.
Take that piece.
Presentation of the superintendent's recommended budget. What do we got? Oh, I forgot about the calendar. Sorry, Cynthia. I mean, yay, calendar.
Yeah, this should only take a minute, right? No.
Yeah, that's always how it goes.
Okay. It's only first read, just remember. It's exhibit or item 13B, gray sheet. So in front of you, you have the proposed calendar for 2019-20. The other two, Brunswick and Topsom, have not yet brought theirs to their board, but they will be doing that soon. We did meet, and in person we are meeting again next week. I did tell them that I'm bringing this to first read this evening. We went through, and we do have 5 days that are different, which keeps us right in line with the maximum number of different days. So we'll continue to start just after Labor Day on this proposed calendar. As you know, we have 5.5 professional learning days, and so those are all identified, and I'll review those in just a second. And then in addition to those days, we have let's see. We have the two comp days that are in there, and then the 2 early releases. So all of those are the same as what we have in our calendar, although the days have shifted. So if you look at the actual calendar, the Wednesday and Thursday in August, I believe it's the 28th and 29th of August, are 2 of those 5.5 PLD days. And then on October 11th, that day works very, very well. It's just shifted. I think it was the 7th this year, the way the calendar worked out, that October 11th. We all are doing that, Brunswick and Topsom and RSU 5. So that day works very, very well for us. And then the March, the February 14th, we've made a little change there. So we moved that to a PLD day this year. And a full day. And then on March 13th this year, I think we had it on the 7th or the 8th. It was the same. It was a Friday before. So we all 3 have that March 13th day together. And then the 0.5 day is the November 8th day. So where it says PLD there, if you look below, it says it has the half written there. So that's the 0.5 day. So the reason that we changed it, like this year, just last week, we just had a PLD in January. When we brought this to the B team, which includes the principals and Becky and I, and then a special ed director, we brought it to the B team, and we had a lot of conversation around learning time. There were two things we talked about. One, we like to stretch the PLD throughout the year. However, with Thanksgiving, Christmas break, and then snow days, that time, that December, January time, is really precious learning time, and we already know we're going to have some snow days in there. So that's why you're going to see we tried to stay away from PLD days in those months. So if you look at December, for example, all you have is Christmas break. And then in January, it's just the 2 holidays. And so and then all the way up till February break, you don't have the PLD till then. So that was purposeful. by design. And then we moved the early release day that we had in December, because we wanted that out of there, and moved it to April 1st. And then we kept the one in May, which is on they're both on Wednesdays. And the one on in May lines up with Brunswick's. So I think, and then the two, we kept the 2 compensation days, the day before Thanksgiving, which is November 27th, and then the day before April break. So those have remained the same since I've been here. I think those have been the 2 professional compensation days, and I don't know for how many years prior to that.
And for those who don't know what a professional compensation day is,
so when they have student-teacher or parent-teacher conferences, whichever way they do it, they get compensated for that day on another day.
So
because they're working later into the evening, and so that's their compensation for that day.
So those days have no kids, no teachers.
No kids,
PLD
no teachers.
days, teachers, no kids. Compensation days, nobody. Kate?
Is the November 8th PLD half day, is that just half day, no kids at all that day?
Correct. Yeah, that's that 1.5 day that we had it in January, a year, not this year, but the year before.
Okay.
And then the board wanted to switch that, and so we have it, I think, I don't have this year's calendar in front of me. I think it's in March this year.
Okay. And then
yes, it is. It's March 6th or 7th, whatever that Friday is this year.
Okay.
8th.
And then
8th, thank you, sorry.
early release is
Early release is the students come for about a half a day, and they go home, and the teachers stay for professional
PLD. Right?
Yes,
Okay.
and they're put on
PD.
Wednesdays purposefully because that's when the staff meetings are. So it actually gives an extra hour.
Okay.
That day.
Is
So they have
there-
like 4 hours of PLD.
Is there a reason why we took away the I think it was an early release, leading into February vacation this year is where we had the earlier release?
We
So
switched
could
it for
get
the PLD next year.
Well, I think if we put the PLD day later, it's too far. The reason.
Well, you could switch it, I guess, with another ER.
I think the point is keeping the ERs on Wednesdays because that's the day of the extended staff meetings. So
Or that's fine. You could do it with
But I
the,
think
the PD half day. I think we were trying to get more student days in February. That's why we did it that way this year. Because of the snow days that traditionally occur in February.
Right, but remember, like from December, January, and February, there are no PLD days until that February 14th.
Right, you just take the November one from November 8th.
Right.
Could you swap it with the 14th of February?
So there's a reason that we didn't want to do that. But just you let me think just a second.
But the other thing is like you said, this year we had a PLD day in January. So there was already a day they definitely weren't going to be in school in that period.
Correct.
Whereas this proposed one doesn't have that day. So the only PLD day between Christmas break and February break is that day right before
Correct.
February break. So it's still technically the same number of days, instructional days in January and February.
So I like what Katie's saying about doing early releases if possible the day before vacation, and only because when we all know who have kids in the schools, when you have the last day before a vacation, nobody gets anything done. In fact, the Friday before December, they all sip hot chocolate and watch movies after an assembly. So that would be the perfect day, if that's going to continue to happen, to have an early release and count it as an early release rather
So
than
we-
send the kids to school and they're not getting
I
much
don't believe we
instruction.
have an early release on that February break.
No,
we
that's
don't.
their point.
But I'm saying maybe we should.
So
And
the
before
reason
December vacation too.
So I think that came up in discussion at B Team, and they felt that the teachers are going to be not there. It's right before their February break too, and that's not going to be an effective use of the. I mean, I think that I get your argument. I'm just the other side of that is the effective use of the teacher's engagement in the PLD after an early release.
Yeah, but
No,
no,
I'm just
they're about to
pointing
go
out
into
the other
vacation.
side.
They're adults. I'm sure
Correct.
every other working adult would say, why can't they focus?
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying that came up as a conversation.
Or if the kids are in school, why don't they get the instruction they're supposed to be getting? I mean, it's something that I question. These really light days right before the vacation.
They're all valuable days. Right.
There's always going to be a day before vacation, even if you back it up.
I don't think they would be watching the movie on Thursday. I think they watch it on Friday because, okay, it's
There's
Friday.
always the last day of school. There's always the day before the last day of school. You can't get away from that stuff.
So where, it seemed like a lot of our PLD days were matching up with the other districts?
Yes.
What are they doing differently?
Well, they have, so they have August 27th is a day that they have a PLD day. So they have 3 days prior to. And we discussed that at our B team and unanimously decided that wasn't going to be to the benefit of what our goals are for
And
using
that
those
counts
PLD.
towards so our calendar isn't just once the kids come back to school, that counts as one of the days out of compliance, even though the kids aren't in school?
So Brunswick has 176 days and so many PLD days. And as long as we have 170 days in common, that's easier to put it that way. As long as we have 170 days in common, then we're in compliance.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out, are they starting before Labor Day?
No.
None of them are starting
None of
before
them are
Labor
starting
Day?
before Labor Day. I also did bring up all the things that you asked me to bring up with them, and
how'd they take the March vacation idea?
Yeah, no.
Sorry, Kate.
Yeah, I did. I
Well,
did.
get rid of February, get rid
Yeah,
of April,
yeah.
do one in March.
That's your idea.
Yeah.
I want to get rid of April.
And I think Brunswick, I don't want to misquote Paul, but I think he tried this several years ago, and he tried to move to that. They didn't do it, but it was a.
Is it because we said no then?
He didn't say, no, it was his community. Yeah, his own community.
Change is hard.
Yeah.
Change is hard. But doesn't mean it's wrong.
No.
So back to the calendar, I'm a little concerned about November being so choppy. And I'm wondering if we could do the PC, the personal compensation day, that's before Thanksgiving break, turn that into a PLD and move the PLD that's on the 8th to, say, May 22nd, which is a long weekend anyway, and turn that into the PC. So you will get your PLD in November, but you would get it right before Thanksgiving. You would free up the 8th as an instructional day, and then by May, you can give the teachers that PC day, which is towards the end of the year. There are no storms, so it's a little more fluent.
I can only comment that day has been a standing day, and I know people use it for travel.
Yeah.
For Thanksgiving because they're going to visit family.
And
I just think I should bring that up because
And they can't miss a PLD day. Like, you can't take a personal day. Like,
Correct.
I think, I don't think we should do that. I'm sure they would probably really like an extra long Memorial Day weekend, and maybe it would be worth it to them. But I don't know. I think that's, the day before Thanksgiving is a tough one.
Yeah.
Or they use it for turkey prep or whatever.
Anywhere.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? So this is a first read.
Correct.
It'll come back at our next meeting
will.
for a second.
Mm-hmm.
One more question.
Yep.
There was some mention made of basically switching some of the early release days for late starts.
So that came up too, and they would like us, Nancy, if she were standing here, would rather us all have early releases. Only one of the 3 districts has late starts, and they brought it up to their district and would like to switch it, but that didn't go in their community. For Nancy, it's easier. She says once the kids are there, they're there. If you have a late start getting them there, it's just a whole different feel. So Nancy's at the table with us as well.
Jeremy,
I did bring it up though.
Just one question on the ER days.
Yes.
Has there been any talk of offering, childcare in the elementary levels on those early release days?
For parents? No, we haven't.
I bet Peter Wagner would, with
The community programs.
Mm-hmm.
Is your mic on?
That's a great idea.
Okay,
Is your mic
great.
on? People would like to hear that.
I know some booster clubs that are looking into partnering with departments to offer that through Peter Wagner.
That's great.
Yeah, I can talk to him too.
Kate.
So even though this group that's sitting around the table discussing the calendar wasn't in favor of the idea of getting rid of one of the vacation weeks, will they be bringing it back to their boards? Because it sounds like they're making the decision without presenting it to their board.
I can ask them next week.
Okay.
Yeah. I have what I think in my mind, but I'm not going to tell you what I think. But
You should
yeah.
encourage them.
You should encourage them. Or we
I
could write an email.
I'll have them write a statement that we did talk about it for a good 10, 15 minutes last time. So I just want you to know I was really.
And you were advocating for?
Yes, I said our board would really like us to consider, it may not be for next year, it may be for the year after, but we really would like to have your districts, if you could have conversations to consider. And so that's when Paul shared with me, he tried it before and it was a no-go in his community and it didn't feel, I wasn't feeling the love for
They were like, oh, we were just waiting for you to ask Cynthia. Thank you so much. That
And
didn't
then
happen.
Peg took Dan Shooter's place in 75, so she had a lot of information, but didn't have that background on that, so at the time, so I can't answer for her.
Okay, so we need a motion for consideration and approval of the 2019-2020 school calendar first read. Jen, second. Erica? Any other questions? All those in favor?
Okay.
None opposed. Thank you. Oh, we're under on that one by 3 minutes.
Now we're only 24 minutes behind.
My timekeeper. Okay, now presentation of the superintendent's budget.
That's your laptop. I took it. I took your laptop back to my seat. Do you have the dongle?
It's right on the.
Oh, right here. Okay, very good.
Powering up right now. It's,
No, I was just seeing, because when it's either this way or it's upside down. I don't
Nope,
think
it's upside down. It's one way or the other. Here,
Okay,
I
how
can't
about-
with my nails.
Gosh. I don't have.
Would you like me to turn off some of the lights?
Let's see what it looks like. What do you think?
It's got a little bit of a glare.
No. Oh, just
Okay. Yeah, I think you're right. Can we do?
Yeah, just the background.
Yeah. That first set. If we turn that on.
Where is it worn down, right? That light's good move. What is it?
Oh yeah, that's good, Trevor.
Oh, that's really good. That's great.
So I'm. I don't know. Are we taking a break, or do you want me to go? Okay. All right. So tonight I present an overview of the recommended FY20 budget, where I'm very excited to bring to you the administrator's best thinking about how to move student achievement forward in RSU 5. And this budget does have unanimous support from the administrative team. So you just adopted well, I guess we had the first read. So technically, we're still under our current mission and vision statement to provide our students with a world-class education that will challenge minds, engage creativity, develop self-discipline, and advance inherent strengths. I believe this budget is fiscally responsible and also improves student support and student achievement. Tonight, we just kind of went through our overarching strategic goal to focus on student achievement through improved student-centered teaching and learning, and we talked about the 4 learning objectives, and I believe this budget supports those objectives. We talked a little bit about enrollment earlier tonight. If you take a look at this graph, it illustrates that our highest enrollment is this year at 1993, and for the last 4 years we have been increasing slightly. I'm really expecting this trend to continue. If I'm just looking at the enrollment from the year before and moving it up, it shows that we're going to be at flat enrollment, but I've not predicted correctly for the past 2 years, so I really think that that will probably go up a little bit more. So you can see that since 2015, we have added 167 students to the RSU at a time when the vast majority of districts throughout the state are dealing with declining enrollments. In June, we expect to graduate 147 seniors, and in September, we hope to welcome 156 ninth graders. And you can see from this table that the majority of our increase in enrollment has been at the high school for the past several years. And they're projecting to be at their highest enrollment in the last 10 years next year. This budget presented tonight will keep our class sizes within the board guidelines. All classes will be somewhere between 13 and 22 students for K through 8. These are the areas that the administrative team decided to focus on. We felt like it was important to maintain the class sizes that we have, following the board's policy on class size. We want to increase some nursing students, and then we want to increase student support. So those are our primary focus areas. This shows our latest MEA scores, and as you can see, there are still many of our students not reaching proficiency. Our highest performing grade at the moment is in grade 8, with 70% of our students proficient in reading. This budget adds positions for additional student support with the aim of increasing proficiency for these students that are currently not meeting it. So I mentioned that class size, maintaining the class sizes, that was an important focus for us, and what this really means is that we need one additional teacher out at Durham Community School in grade 6, which will result in class sizes of 16 versus 24. We need an additional first grade teacher at Moore Street, which will result in class sizes of 17 to 18 versus 22. And because of the increasing enrollment at the high school, we need a 0.5 world language teacher and an additional 0.25 science teacher. We're requesting to have the nurse at Freeport Middle School go to full-time, and this really ensures equity of nursing services throughout the district. And so Ray is requesting that, and the administrative team was very supportive of that. The largest area that we're requesting is really around student support. As you remember, you supported the Endeavor Classroom at the high school, which provides kind of a alternative or a different pathway for some of our students. We currently are just offering that, I think primarily, Jen will talk about this more, to 10th graders, I think, or their 10th and 11th graders. And we really are now finding a need that for some of these students, they need to continue that support. So we're requesting more staff so that we can have more students in that program. Then something you started 2 years ago that you supported was Will talked about needing what we are calling RTIB ed techs to do check-in, check-outs with students in a timely manner to help kind of monitor their plans. And last year, we expanded that to Freeport Middle School. And now, because it's been so successful in both of those areas at the middle level, at the elementary level, we're requesting ed techs at Pownell, Moore Street, and Mass Landing to do the similar type job. The other thing that we're seeing that we need is that we need another program in special ed at Mass Landing School. We currently have a program like this at Moore Street, and many of our students will be moving to Mass Landing and have a need to continue that kind of programming, but there's still enough of the students at Moore Street that we can't just move the program. So that kind of programming that we have right now at Moore Street requires a teacher and 2 ed techs. We've really looked at our budget, and we think that we can reallocate one of our special ed techs, and so the add to the budget will be an additional teacher and 1 ed tech. And as you can see, we feel like this is very supported by research about having programmings that support behavior and response to intervention, and there's just a lot of research around the impact of when our students drop out, and we feel like our Endeavor program at the high school will prevent many of these kids from not dropping out. In addition to this, we do have some more. It seems like there's always transportation needs. A lot of this is related to our students with disabilities needing to be transported on a van rather than a school bus, and so we're requesting a half-time van driver. Of course, then we need another van. And then we are asking for a bus aid for some of our students who have the most challenging behavior. In nutrition, even though this is part of our regular budget, but Michelle, it's kind of a different entity. It doesn't impact the overall percent increase in expenditures. I think our nutrition program is going very well, and Erin is requesting an additional cook at Freeport Middle School, and then moving a part-time position at the high school to full-time. And I think part of that is adjustments in lunch times, but I think also we're just seeing an increase in students wanting to eat the school lunch. So that's a good problem. In community programs, Peter will be talking about a request for $25,000 so that the enrichment programs that we do with adults will result on them being able to ride in a nicer charter bus rather than getting on like a school bus to go down to Boston. I know, exactly. And they did do that recently. Where we could, we did repurpose for excellence, equity, and engagement. We reallocated one of our special ed staff. We've reallocated the decrease of debt service dollars. Our debt service is going down $117,000. So some of those positions you saw, we used that money. And then we continue to, every year when we meet with the administrators and the directors, we look at a 3-year historical spending and increase where we need to increase, but also decrease when we're not using those funds. We feel like this budget really moves us forward in ensuring all of our students have a pathway to success. And of course, we always wonder, well, what is the cost to that? And so, right, so the cost for this year, with some estimates, is this is a expenditure increase of 3.3% with a tax impact of 4.98% to the taxpayers. And this is really, I just wanted to put on one screen for you to, and I do have handouts for you so that just for the ones of you who'd like a paper copy, I'll hand that out after we're done here. But it's just a snapshot of the additional positions that we're asking for. 2 classroom teachers, 1 special ed teacher, 1 special ed technician, a .3 nursing, a teacher for the Endeavor program, and then that .75 for the language and the science, the half-time van driver, the additional van, and the bus aide. Well, we do, because that, you know, we pick a level, right? And I think that's masters plus 9. And I think Michelle looks at what has happened historically, and then she makes a recommendation. Okay. Let me answer that for you. Oh,
No, you got
all right. That's good. I was at least proficient on that. And then this is this just shows you the past 5 years. And I'll just point out FY19, that was kind of like artificially deflated, if you remember, because they took the expenditures out of the regional school. And so that 500,000 brought that down pretty dramatically last year.
And that was the expenditure change?
Yes. Right. And then that's just another way of kind of seeing the expenditure increase for the people who prefer graphs. And then these are the things that we estimated. We right now are just keeping state subsidy flat, so we won't know that probably until March or April. But we needed to put something in. You know, I know that the board's not gamblers. We've talked about this before, but I gambled that you would vote in the regionalization. And so that money is in there when you're looking at the tax impact. So I've already added in that 50,000. Region 10 has not done their budget, so this is just an estimate. We increased it by 5%, and that's because there are 2 areas that they're really focused on, and that's improving the air quality over there, and then they are requesting a special ed teacher to help kind of co-teach with their regular teachers, because a lot of the students that do attend the regional school are students with disabilities, and so they've talked about that, I know, since I've been here, about the need for that. So that'll be shown in their budget this year. And then we have not received the quote for how much our property and casualty insurance is going up, and so we're just estimating 8%. So that could go further up or further down. And then this is really just our timeline, showing you, we kept in the 4 Q&As. You added a additional Q&A. And then as you remember that the final piece of the process is that on May 22nd, we'll have the annual budget meeting. And then on June the 11th, we'll have the budget validation vote. And I do believe that this budget supports student achievement, but also just building pride in RSU 5. So thank you.
Becky?
So you're getting a lot of paperwork now. You're getting the PowerPoint in paper form, but you're also, because I know you always want to know what didn't we fund, and I did not go into that. We can talk about that as we go through the individual budgets, but I do have the sheet with how the administrative team kind of prioritized the request, and you'll see on those things the things we did not put into the budget. It's on the, Michelle, it's on the lavender. Yep.
I love that you gambled that we would do regionalization, but you didn't gamble that we would adjust the mission statement.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Sure. No, I don't think so. This is our no questions, right?
No questions.
Yeah, I think this is just your provide it, and then we can all dive into the numbers, and we'll talk about it when we.
So maybe while they hand out all these great documents, can you just explain to us what was the process in terms of how the administrative team worked to arrive at the proposed budget?
Do you want to do questions?
Or should we do it some other time? I mean, eventually, I would like to know at some point.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be tonight.
Yeah, so I think we'll probably, maybe we can start with that at our next.
Okay, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, all right, so now everyone has this that they can read at their pleasure between now and our next board meeting. Well, so here's the thing. So we're at 10 o'clock, which means if we want to go into executive session, well, first, we don't have any personnel items. We do have public comment. So, and we do actually still have someone from the public still here. So if you wanted to share any comments, you can come up and just let us know who you are and where you're from. And any specific questions that you have, Cynthia will get contact info for you if we need to get back to you with any answers.
And comments are 3 minutes.
And 3 minutes.
Okay. I'm Wendy Bailey. I have a little boy. I don't want to cry. He hasn't been diagnosed with anything, but we're going through CDS right now, and Durham has kicked him down to a half day, and we're fighting to get him back to a full day, and we need help. And so that's why I'm here, is to see what you guys have in plan for a CDS program for Durham. Because right now he can only go half a day. But he's wicked smart, and I don't think it's fair that he is behavioral challenged. He is very destructive when he doesn't understand. Because he just started talking a year and a half ago. So I don't think that Durham is staffed for someone that doesn't qualify for special ed and doesn't qualify for special schooling, like Sweetser or anything like that. And I've been told that Freeport has that program, and I don't know what I have to do to get him there. Because if he stays in Durham, he won't be able to go to pre-K next year because he won't be ready. But him being as smart as he is, he will be ready. But behavioral, he won't. And so it's a board of people. I want to know what you guys have in step for him to go for next year. Because I know that you can't leave him behind. We've tried to get him help, but they keep saying that all CDS can do is the 27 hours. And I don't know if that's true, but I'm here asking for help
or any information that we can get as parents to help him. So I'm sorry I'm crying, but he's my little boy and I just want the best for him, and he deserves that, especially in 2019 where we all have everything that we can ask for, you know, especially education. It's the most important thing, because he doesn't deserve what he's getting right now. So I'm sorry.
Okay, so first of all, no need to apologize. We all get emotional with our kids. It's our most important job in the world, so know that we certainly understand that. My suggestion, and maybe Cynthia could help, is get you in touch with the special ed department to see what services there might be or what he might qualify for, or other services that you can access. You know, we as a board don't necessarily know all of the options or opportunities for you, but we have a great team in place that does. So I would suggest Cynthia can get your contact info and they can follow back up with you.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Okay, so we do have an executive session on the agenda, but our policy is that if we're going to start something after 10, we need to vote. If Naomi's watching, we know you'd vote no. She probably is.
No, she's
I don't
moved on with her life.
You think so? We're going to get a Facebook message.
Maybe she misses out.
Yeah. Or we could move this to our next agenda. My only concern is that it is, our agendas keep staying full, right? And as we get into budget season, we tend to talk about things even more. So that's what I'm going to ask. You just,
I just had it.
yeah, I was going to say, this was a aggressive agenda, and I'm actually pretty impressed we're at where we are. Thank you. So here.
Yeah, I think this is it, right?
No, it's right here.
Okay, here we are.
Right, so our next agenda is just budget review with Durham, the high school, and Freeport Middle School, athletics, and then the program of studies.
That's kind of a big one.
I was going to say, I mean, you know, relative to what we've tackled tonight, I think it's probably a less aggressive budget, agenda.
Well, I won't be here, so I vote to stay.
Right.
Really passionately dedicated to my job.
You're good. You're too good.
So, so I hear that Maddie is making a motion to extend our meeting. Is there a second for that? Lindsay? Okay. So our options are we can stay and it's the review of Becky's, just her update on her goals, the superintendent's goals, so far this year, which everyone should have gotten in their email from Ginny at like 5:39 this morning. So hopefully folks had a chance to read it, and maybe it would be quick, or we can move it to the February 6th. So a yes vote is to stay, a no vote is to move it to February 6th. So, any questions? I know, maybe we're all too tired if we can't even figure out how to vote. All right, all those in favor? 4,
Close.
5, okay. Opposed? It's a tie. How can it be a tie? Can't be a tie, we're all here.
No, if you're all here. Oh.
Okay.
No, it can be.
No, there's 11 of us.
No, I know, but like.
Yeah, but don't we weigh differently?
Yeah, you do weigh.
We do, yes, there is a winner. But it can't be 5v5, it's 6v5. So there's, okay, so, yeah, clearly. Cynthia, you have to watch. All those in favor, immediately put your hand up. None of this sort of putting your hand up later.
1, 2, 3. Oh, 5. Okay, so 5. And you have from Freeport. Can you do it again? Freeport.
Okay, and then against.
And then against?
Against.
Yes.
Yep. 1, 2, 3,
That's 6.
Okay, that's 6. Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna.
Right. Yeah. No.
It's actually from a switched vote, but it's fine.
When it was the two panel, they were winning. That's
Okay. So, all right. So we will not be continuing. We will move the executive session to our next board meeting, and I will take a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Erica. Kate, all those in favor? And don't run out the door because Cynthia needs to take a picture for the budget. Oh, opposed? Okay. You're opposed to adjourning?
Do people want a hard copy?
Okay,
Do people want a hard
who
copy?
made that motion to adjourn? I didn't get that, I'm sorry.
Erica and Kate seconded it, and everyone was in favor except Maddie and Jeremy. They were opposed to adjourning.
So 9 to 2?
Yeah.
Maddie and Jeremy. Okay.
It's nice to have lighthearted dissenting.
time.
like-
I know,
You know,
exactly.
you gotta throw